Throw it, now steps up, wants to run, Bohannon to the corner, touchdown Bears! Feet don't fail me now! Gary Bohannon with his best rushing performance of the season.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Down Chambers, will look to the end zone, has a man, open, it is caught, touchdown! Naor does it again, how did he hang on to that one?
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Pressure coming. Foles is hit, and he lost the football. Scooped up by the Bills. Terrell Bernard down the sideline. Touchdown!
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Back for a third down and goal from the 12. Danucci throwing, end zone, it's caught. Touchdown for the Cowboys. Fehoko on the receiving end, and Dallas will not be shut out tonight.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go. August the 15th, full throttle inside the studio. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. This is 365 Sports YouTube, Sikkim 365 Radio. A lot of things to get to, including the Associated Press preseason top 25 poll is out, and we will feature a couple of those schools today, Kentucky and also Pittsburgh, with analysts who cover those two teams. We'll get to that, the top 25 momentarily. Not really many surprises, but a lot of great nuggets in there as well. Thank you. For those of you who subscribe to this channel, we went over 23,000 over the weekend. In fact, Brian Etheridge late Saturday night throws up a number, 22,997. The next morning we woke up, it was 23,000 plus for those of you who joined over the weekend, and we appreciate you very much for doing that. All right, we'll also get into the drama at Kentucky, including, speaking of Kentucky ranked in the top 25, college football injuries at Texas, Notre Dame dealing with one, and they also, the Irish, named their starting quarterback. So let's start with the top 25, Garrett. Just pop it up. There's the preseason top 25, the AP, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, and also Clemson, Notre Dame. The rest of the top 10, A&M, Utah, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Baylor. Oklahoma State of the Big 12 is 12th. Also included future Big 12 members at 23, 24, and 25, Cincinnati, Houston, and Brigham Young.
It's still a preseason poll, so, take it with a grain of salt. Half these, at least a third of those teams are going to not be in it at the end of the year because of whatever reason. But I do like that BYU is in this one and Texas is not, because I think BYU has earned at least that based on their last season, where Texas has not, and let Texas earn their way in. Give them something to, be disrespected about and, feel like they need to earn it. So I like that. Some of the things I thought were too low, some a little bit too high, but it's almost a mirror image of the other poll.
There's a lot more new Big 12 representation in here. There's also A&M in that spot that was kind of made you double take last week, but looks to be pretty much the same kind of vibe between the coaches and the media, and certainly I think I trust the media a little bit more as far as this goes, a preseason poll, because I don't know how much the coaches are actually, paying too much attention to most programs around the country. Maybe in their conference, maybe they're big rivals, but I don't know that they can sit there 1 through 25 and really have an accurate portrayal of, who their who they're looking for. And like we mentioned, GAs fill that out half the time. So with the media poll, I know that most people probably put a bit more thought into it. I think, it's cool to see that they did not, bite eat the cheese and go up with the easy Texas layup and just throw them in there for the sake of throwing them in there. And, hey, we'll be right after the fact perhaps. But, yeah, I mean, at the top it looks pretty similar. And, after that you can kind of rearrange it however you want to. I mean, this isn't an exact science. So Baylor at 10 looks good. I think that's a good starting spot for them. And we will see here in a couple weeks how these teams actually perform.
Chat room is going. We appreciate you. The text line also. We had a little back and forth earlier. I did with an A&M fan who thought that we were giving A&M a little bit too much trouble over the last 10 years as far as their record and stuff. We had that last week, but then was able to then say that we treat Texas going to the SEC like royalty. We figured it out, haven't we, Paul?
Yeah.
He gave us a gig of Maggies after I kind of explained to him he must not watch or listen to us very often. You want some nuggets in the top 25? Let's give them. Alabama has now been ranked in the top 5 preseason poll for 14 consecutive years. Ohio State is now a record 34th consecutive top 25 preseason poll, tied previously with Nebraska and Penn State. Texas A&M is the second highest ranked preseason team, coming off being unranked at the end of the year. Previously, 1972, Ohio State was ranked 3rd. They finished 9-2. In 1983, Notre Dame was ranked 6th after being unranked at the end of the year, and they finished 7-5. How about North Carolina State? First time preseason top 25 since 2003. How about Pittsburgh? First time preseason top 25 since 2010. How about Kentucky? And we'll have John Clay on today. First top 25 preseason ranking since 1978. Wake Forest, first preseason top 25 ranking since 2008. All of that, what I just mentioned, new blood, fresh. Teams that now they have gotten a little bit of the attention, they've earned it, and now can they sustain it? Florida, and I don't bring this up, Paul, but you and I talked about this earlier. First time since 1974 that Florida and Florida State, one or the other, both of them unranked since 1974.
They don't deserve it.
Florida State back then was still trying to figure themselves out, but both of them out since 1974. No, they don't. No,
they don't deserve it.
And both of them by the end of the year, maybe they will be a part of that. That remains to be seen. Now, some college football notes. There's a graphic that was put out over the weekend, and Garrett, the most preseason number 1 rankings in AP poll since 2000. I think you could now scratch out 6 on Alabama and make that 7. USC 4 times has been ranked number 1 in the country to start the year in the AP. Clemson, Florida, Ohio State, Oklahoma twice, and then Florida State, Georgia, Miami, and Nebraska. And 3 of those last 4, of course, have not held up their end of the bargain in a long, long time. One time since 2000. 7 times for Alabama, USC second with 4.
Yeah. I like to call that 3 out of the 4 that hadn't held their bargain is the Hootie and the Blowfish category, where, really great run in the 90s, but they're still around.
Yeah.
We hear them. Darius Rucker still got a great voice, but, it's not I only want to be with you.
That's when they all were dominant back in the day as well. Gary Bohannon named QB1 today by USF Football. Not a surprise. South Florida, the Bulls. He transferred there after the spring when Baylor named Blake Shapen as the starting quarterback. That's not a surprise, but it wasn't just a gimme. And he has been ranked or named the QB1 by the Bulls as well. Now, Notre Dame named their starting quarterback. You, Craig, anything? That's not a surprise, right?
I think we should all have something to say about Gary Bohannon. Yeah. I mean, we just watched him for 4 years, so I don't think that's a story that any of us should just, go right on to the next thing. Yeah. We saw Gary for 4 years. He was a great young man. He was a great leader. He did everything that you asked him to do, according to the coaches, for, multiple seasons, and, waited his turn, got his turn. lost his, shine when he got hurt in the Kansas State game, and Blake Shapen came in and then kind of set the world on fire for a couple of weeks and, won him a Big 12 title, got him to a Sugar Bowl. And then, quite frankly, Gary's last game at Baylor wasn't that great. I mean, they did not win the Sugar Bowl because of their offense. They won that game because they played great defense, and Monterey Baldwin popped one play, and Al Walcott ran back a pick six. That's why they won the Sugar Bowl. They really did not win that game on the merits of their offense. And if you want to, list the contribution by the offense to that game, it's probably like fifth, as far as that win goes. But, that's not to like bag on him. That wasn't just him. But there was certainly an element when he was at quarterback that just seemed to be missing a little bit. They couldn't quite do everything that they wanted to do. And I think that Blake Shapen gives him more of an all-around throwing threat, which is what they're really looking to do a bit more this year. So Gary had problems with that at times. Certainly in that Sugar Bowl, you can think of a few throws. There was like a wide-open touchdown, you remember, that he missed, and y'all remember that? Yeah, the wide-open touchdown throws and all that. So he didn't go out on the best note, but I know that he went out as a great teammate and a great leader, and there are probably some people over there that still miss him, just his presence and the leadership aspect of it. But I wish him nothing but the best in Tampa. I think he'll be great for the Bulls, and you know what? I'm sure he's improved a little bit since we last saw him as well, and I wish him nothing but success.
Well, Jeff Scott is trying to keep his job there at USF, and they're trying to make their case to maybe get into a Power 5 league if that's still an option for them. Who knows with the way that expansion goes, but they're about to get a new stadium, apparently, the Bulls are, and to create excitement for that on campus, you need to win. To win, you need leadership on the team. And before we even get to how Gary is as a player, Jeff Scott needs Gary Bohannon guys on the team. I mean, he needs guys like Gary on the team to help him get to that next level and get through this season into the next one because, they haven't had a lot of success. Gary has had some success. He's been around, and he's been on a team. He's seen some up and downs. So that's the kind of guy, transfer quarterback I wanted, a guy who's had some success, a guy who is athletic, who I know can do a lot of different things with, and a guy I know who also maybe has seen some stuff, right? He's been through some things. That would help your team who's going through some ups and downs, and mostly downs right now in Tampa.
He has been in a program that has experienced highs and also the lows and then the back up the ladder. And so we'll see what he does in Tampa. Wish him the best of luck. And I was on the phone for a few minutes a week or two ago with a writer covering USF, and he asked me to explain what Gary Bohannon meant to Baylor, and I said his value was as much with what he did in the offseason between 2 and 7, and then, of course, the Sugar Bowl team, and the fact that he gave Baylor what they needed on offense, but then they needed more this year on offense. And that's even what Jeff Grimes has said. But there's no question what a great young man and an incredible leader and somebody that was there every day, and people kind of like they were almost he was like a magnet of leadership in that inside that program.
Yeah, they needed a little bit more to win a national championship. I mean, and you could say that for probably other positions as well, but certainly a quarterback. I mean, they weren't going to win a national title or get to that goal this year potentially to a playoff spot, probably if Gary Bohannon's a quarterback, just because of the limitations that he has and what they saw last year, and not even so much him, but what Blake Shapen can do throwing the football and what they've seen him do. So it's just a matter of, hey, they had a competition that lasted for well over a year or about a year, and Blake Shapen won that competition at the end of the day, just like Gary won it the year prior. And, that's part of the deal. Only one quarterback can start on a team, and so Blake's the guy for Baylor now. Gary's the guy for USF, and again, I wish him the best, and I'm sure he'll, really help change the culture out there in Tampa.
Notre Dame wide receiver, I saw Tim Brando actually mention this yesterday, Avery Davis out, torn ACL on the same day that they announced this sophomore quarterback Tyler Buckner will start their opening game against Ohio State September 3rd.
Avery Davis played at Cedar Hill, so I hate to see that for him. I believe he's a senior as well. I'm not sure 4th, 5th, 6 years because it gets confusing, and I haven't triple checked that roster. But yeah, I definitely remember him from his high school days, and I was excited for the Earl Campbell Award to have some Notre Dame representation. But looks like, at least in his case, that's out the door. So that's unfortunate to get all the way here and then to have that ripped out from underneath you just to couple weeks before the season started. That's just brutal, especially for a guy who's late in his career like that.
Western Kentucky quarterback Jared Dagey has entered the portal.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. I don't intend to bag on Jarrett Dagey every time his name's brought up, but it's kind of what you end up doing when you talk about West Virginia and why Neil Brown's on the hot seat. I think a lot of it has to do with his quarterback play over the last couple of years. It has to do with other things as well, but in particular, if you're starting a list, I think it starts with, Jarrett Dagey's play, and that's why, there's this optimism now with a brand new quarterback coming in out of the transfer portal and kind of a new era beginning in that regard. And, Dagey's got some eligibility left, like pretty much everybody in college football does, it seems. And so he was going to take advantage of it. But the fact that he's not transferring from Western Kentucky before playing it down, that's just that's the breaks, I guess. I don't know how many people are surprised by that. I don't know much about his competition, but yeah, that's not great news, and that's not, I'm sure, what he was expecting when he left Morgantown.
On the text line, and we will have some information for you about our text line because it has changed. The number's the same, but how we receive it is changing. This is from our good friend, let's see here, the 813 on Brigham Young. They will play against 3 former Baylor quarterbacks this season. They will play against Charlie Brewer, who's at Liberty. They will play against Gary Bohannon at USF. And he mentioned one more. Who would be the other?
The Baylor quarterback?
And they'll play Baylor, of course, as well, who's now with, of course, Baylor in Blake Shapen as well. So 3 different players, 2 that used to be a part of Baylor in Bohannon and Brewer, and now also Blake Shapen.
Yeah, that's weird. Good for those guys that have landing spots. Again, I feel great about Bohannon and culturally what he'll bring to USF. I think I'm interested to see kind of how his throwing has evolved. I mean, not that he was completely inept in that regard. It's just there's some accuracy issues that were present that hopefully he's gotten worked on a little bit. And if he can do that, then, that eliminates one area of concern. As far as Charlie Brewer and Liberty, I like Charlie. I'm not a big Hugh Freeze fan by any means, so I don't know how much I'll actually be checking that out, but I wish him the best as well.
All right, Catland, by the way, in the chat room, among some others we have not yet read, but hey, Kansas State, surprised they're not a part of the top 25. They may make a push for the Big 12 championship. I think that's one of those. I think K-State will be really good. I do, the way they're set up, but I still think that's one of those wait-and-see type teams. How they do early and where they are and then right now, of course, it doesn't matter preseason, but it is good fodder for us to discuss as well. From Catland, I believe KSU will surprise a lot of people if they stay healthy. One more note about health. Miles Brennan, we had Mike Scarborough on from Tiger Bait on Friday, covers LSU. He will no longer play college football. He's been injured a little bit in the last couple of years on and off, and he will no longer play college football. And then there was the note about Isaiah Nayor, a very impressive wide receiver who transferred to Texas. A lot of different reports. Sarkisian has a press conference or a media today at 5. It appears as if during their scrimmage on Saturday, he may have injured his knee. And most of the scuttle is that he could be out for the rest of the year, if not long term.
I want to go back to Miles Brennan for a second and a Darren Ravel tweet. Miles Brennan signed NIL deals with Raising Cane's, Smoothie King, Game Coin, Small Sliders, and Hollinsford Richards Ford. And he will not play anymore. But because the NIL deals cannot be based on performance, he gets all that money. So what a coup for Miles Brennan. Yeah, you can't play college football anymore, but you get all that NIL money that you, I guess, earned through charity or whatever else you did to have those deals.
Yeah, that's where the guidance needs to come in because, again, and businesses should be smarter than this in that. And look, good for Miles Brennan. I'm glad he's getting the bag there. But if I'm Raising Cane's, I'm like, well, there's 2 other guys who beat you out for the quarterback spot. And unless you're some sort of ambassador for LSU that's going to grow into some kind of big-time celebrity, I don't know how much you really do for me. And that's where those things need to balance out. Now, businesses make their own decisions, but that's why maybe, you need to dip your toe in that water a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a heck of a note right there.
And he's had a long, winding career. Yeah. I mean, good. I'm not bagging on him by any means, but that just goes to show you kind of the trickiness of NILs. There's like 7 sponsors I just listed off, which why they all went towards Miles Brennan. I mean, good for him. But, yeah, he's not even into playing college football, so that's just money down the chute, I suppose.
Yeah, and back to Texas, Isaiah Nayor is a huge, huge loss for them. That was going to help open up their offense, and they're already going to have a good offense even if he's not there, but he would have really opened him up, and then, with Hall suspended, and who knows what they're really going to get out of him.
So you have Worthy,
yeah,
fantastic player as a freshman. You have Whittington, who, if in fact stays healthy, and that's been a problem. He's a dynamic player, but he's always something up with him as well. And then you would have had him. That's 3 great weapons, and obviously they have 2 or 3 more.
But I think,
those, that's a hit.
But I think equally as they lost, and his name escapes me right now. Forgive me, but the offensive lineman they lost to, I don't know,
Junior
but
Angelo,
or
Angelo. I don't know how to pronounce his last name exactly.
They just don't need to lose depth at that position that they're not very good at.
They don't need to lose anyone who might have been a starter. No one does. But hey, from Eric, thanks on the chat room. Let me go back to the Miles Brennan. I'm from New Orleans, and Miles Brennan's family is rich. He doesn't need that money. I would be surprised if he stopped getting payments. One of the NIL deals said they would do it all over again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's a great young man. I don't know him personally, but a lot of people certainly mourning his retirement and the injury setbacks that he's suffered through, and having been patient and waiting his turn, and then ultimately not getting what he wanted. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are some people, certainly saddened by the news, but good to hear that he's a good young man. And regardless, it's not even so much about Miles Brennan and those NIL deals, not poking fun at those companies by any means. We're just saying, like, hey, that's the risk that you run. There's like 7 businesses that said, hey, let's pay Miles Brennan to be our, spokesperson, and he's not even going to play a down of college football since they signed him. So that's just kind of strange how that works out.
All right, so those are some of the stories.
I want to comment on Nayor. Yeah, that's absolutely massive. He's an incredibly talented wide receiver. For those folks who only knew him when he signed with Texas, I followed him previously when he was at Wyoming, and he was a constant on the Earl Campbell, Tyler Rose Award watch list just because every week it seemed like he was putting up big numbers or had solid games, and that was one of those as somebody who's not a Texas fan, but, I mean, I can respect and appreciate everything that comes with that. So when I saw them pick him up, I was like, damn, because, well, quite frankly, I didn't want to see him at Texas. I mean, I think that highly of him that, hey, I'd rather you go play for Oklahoma. That'd be great for me. Or play for Baylor. They could use you. Or, that would all be great. But you had to go to Texas. And, having said that, I thought he was going to be a massive contributor for them this year. I didn't get as, high on life over Ajayi Hall's instant impact as I did Nayor's. I thought Nayor with Worthy would be just an incredible 1-2 punch. And the rest of the guys they brought in, like Ajayi Hall or a Billingsley, who I know is a tight end, that's the shiny new toys. But, I mean, he was a proven toy. Like, he had, like, scuff marks on him and stuff, but he was still the best toy. And I really thought he was going to have a big year. So to see that news yesterday, was shocked for one. And number 2, just really bummed out for Isaiah Nayor because I think he's, like I said, a really good player, and that's a big loss for Texas. And certainly any hit on their offensive line is going to be to their detriment as well because that is the one area you go into this season and you really see a lot of the question marks emanating from. So that's another one for that already question mark-filled offensive line, and certainly a downer for UT. Doesn't mean they can't still win a bunch of games, but that's definitely not good news that they received yesterday.
So that's that. Sark again will be talking to the media a little after 5. I traded some text messages back and forth with Jeff Howe. And there's a chance, in fact, Jeff said this to me over the weekend when I saw the Nayor news and the offensive line news, that they thought that after the scrimmage there was a chance that they would maybe name a starting quarterback. And there was a little bit of rumblings about what would it be. Would be Ewers, and then, of course, or Hudson Card. And so not sure that happens today or not, but that's also something to watch as well.
If it's not Ewers, that's going to be hilarious. It's going to be hilarious. With all this, I mean, and not, I'm sure there will be somebody, well, wait a second, nobody guaranteed he'd be the starter when he came over, and nobody guaranteed this or that. And, hey, maybe Hudson Card just had a hell of an offseason, but, man, for all that talk about this one player in particular, all this time, if it's not him, and I still believe it'll be him, but if it's not him, that would certainly be something. If the big $1 million transfer quarterback from Ohio State is not your starting quarterback, that would be really kind of shocking.
Yeah. Well, and if you ask, the one thing I wonder, because and clearly he's got the arm talent everybody knows about, but it's a lot more than just how hard you can throw the ball. And he was not, and this is telling because of where Texas wants to be. Now, look, there are not C.J. Strouds just walking around there in the world that everybody can have, but he would not have even come close to getting C.J. Stroud off the field. It wouldn't have been one of those things that, like, C.J. Stroud throws picks on consecutive drives. They're throwing Quinn Ewers in there. They're just going to say, C.J., something wrong, and and let him go. So where Texas wants to be with where Quinn Ewers is right now, like, that's not who he was when he left. Now, that's not to say he's not going to be that guy, but he's not that guy yet.
Yeah, but I mean, so if he's not that guy yet, then why have we hyped him up to the extent that we have, to where this is like the game-changing, move of the century and all this other stuff that it's been made out to be? I mean, certainly it's lost some of its steam since Arch Manning committed, which, I mean, there's another, like, okay, let's just hype it up for another year before we actually see him, but we've had an entire offseason of Quinn Ewers talk and Quinn Ewers this and the receivers they've got. And, certainly there's the offensive line question. But, man, Ewers and Worthy and Bijan and, like that's all we've been talking about. And I don't think that anybody for 1 second, I mean, maybe some Texas fans who, are just sitting there looking at it logically have thought, well, hey, maybe there's a chance that, like, who's really been saying that Hudson Card could win this starting job? Like, I mean, outside of like a Texas podcast that only Texas fans listen to. So I haven't heard it. Yeah. I don't think anybody else who's not a Texas fan has heard that anywhere. I haven't seen it on Twitter. Certainly you can point me to it. But if it's not Quinn Ewers after this offseason, does that mean we have to do another year of just talking about how great he's going to be one day? Because I'm kind of sick of it at this point if he's not the starting quarterback.
Well, and then in a year, you're going to have to discuss the competition they'll have with Arch Manning.
Well,
when he gets
Sark's
on campus.
job.
And whoever's the quarterback, if in fact, that doesn't mean he's not. We don't know that. The decision hasn't been made yet, but that would probably throw some water on someone's head.
And not to be lost in all this, they have a recruit on campus right now, and Malik Murphy was a dude that they were all thrilled to get, who now I can't envision a situation where he's ever going to see the field for them outside of a bunch of torn ACLs.
I've been wondering about him for a while. Yeah.
So I don't know what that says about him. I mean, now it's just this mad dash for quarterbacks. Used to, if you had, that you could stagger. You could not sign a quarterback in a class because you'd be like, well, if we really like this guy, this dude's never going to play. Well, now
Baylor didn't last year.
Yeah, but they want it. But a lot of teams want to. Everybody wants to have one in every class now. Alabama's got 2 in this class. And so, what does that mean for a guy like Malik Murphy, who everybody would have wanted to have for the most part a couple years ago?
That kind of plays into what you're saying, though, is everybody stocks up on quarterbacks. Yeah. So it's not really like his situation's all that unique. But, yeah, when you've got a guy who transfers in who's already being touted above you, and then another guy who's not coming in for, almost a year because he's got to play his last year of high school football, and he's already been basically named the starter by the public before you. I mean, I'm sure that motivates Malik Murphy. But, I haven't heard a mouse fart about him, it seems like, in a really long time. And, there was a lot of celebrating at the time when he got, the big commit announcement out there and signed and all of that. But, I mean, since then, I was like, oh, yeah, Malik, it's like the guy that you forget about. Oh, yeah, Malik Murphy's there, too, with the Ewers thing and with the Hudson Card and, eventually Manning and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, that's not done like you said. I mean, Ewers could very well be named the starter, but if he's not, that's wild.
Andrea Cameron, good to have you, Andrea. Her son, Josh, at Baylor. Nayor's a huge loss for Texas RH5. I think the offensive lineman being injured is probably bigger even than the loss of the receiver in Texas.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know about their offensive line. They just don't need to lose depth on that. Look, when we saw it here at Baylor a few years ago, when you don't have depth on that line, it creates a stress. Not only I had all the offensive linemen in here a couple weeks ago. We did individual things on them, and you can see them on our Athlete Plus section on SicEm365.com. But asking them, the guys who were here early on, about, all right, when you had 7-8 guys and somebody tweaked an ankle in practice and you didn't know what was going on, that was tense. It was tense for them. And that's what can go on when you don't have depth at certain positions, especially offensive line, which they don't yet. on the line, the fronts are where they're deficient, and that's what's going to be kind of the swing of the season, whether they really take a step forward or not, before you even get to the quarterback, because whoever it is, if it's Ewers or Carter, Malik Murphy or whoever, if they don't have time, there's going to be games they lose to better teams up front.
Yeah, I mean, depth-wise, it certainly is. I think just from a proven player standpoint, like, that's where I'm coming from. Nayor is just a proven commodity. He had over 10 touchdowns last year. Not granted, it's at a different level of play, but I don't see why he wouldn't come in the Big 12 and have some pretty good numbers all the same. So, yeah, I mean, proven-wise, I think it's Nayor, but certainly need-wise, yeah, they could afford to lose a wide receiver more than they could afford to lose an offensive lineman. So, congrats to the folks who put them preseason top 25 and then had this drop like 2 days later. The fact that they're going to lose two big pieces, but yeah, I mean, they can ill afford that, and that's the breaks that you get with the season. Sometimes you stay healthy, and sometimes you don't, and right now they are not healthy, and they got to hope that they can remain that way because they can't afford to lose too much more.
If, in fact, anything else is mentioned today in the media session, Jeff Howe will probably join us either tomorrow or Wednesday on whatever, even including the possibility if they do name a quarterback one or QB1 Mike George. It's because Texas fans are desperate to have Texas back, that they cling to any and every thread that unravels to hold on to, and Ewers is a thread. And eventually, one of these has to become the dog. Just take them to a level. But again, that's the injury news on Nayor, the offensive lineman, not good at all today. Today's lineup, we will check in with John Clay. He covers Kentucky. Not sure if you've heard about what happened over the weekend with John Calipari and Mark Stoops. It was interesting. Mark Stoops, to me, showed some grit. We'll also today check in with Pittsburgh. They have West Virginia. Remember, they finally renewed that rivalry, and they're ranked in the top 25. Plus, we'll have Cowboys talk with David Hellman and a lot more to get to. Kendall Kaut, who writes for our site, Sikkim365.com, wrote an article about how does Baylor, and really you could almost just put a blank here, how do they, along with others like them, stay not relevant, but how do they compete for championships moving forward if there's going to be a $30 or $40 million gap per year? They beat some of those teams now, but it's a really, really good column, and Kendall will come on with us today at 4:30 to discuss that. Baylor had Terrell Bernard, Treston Ebner, and Tyquan Thornton score touchdowns in the opening full week of the NFL preseason. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Someone asked about, in the chat room, Baylor's transition from Charlie Brewer to Gary Bohannon and now, of course, to Blake Shapen as well. One of what Dave Aranda said last year, and he said it during one of the times I was fortunate enough to have a chance to interview him, one of his biggest regrets about 2020, a lot of them, but one of his biggest regrets was that he never could have any kind of connection with Charlie Brewer. Now, neither did the offensive coordinator, Larry Fedora, who was fired immediately after the season was over, and the offense was terrible. Charlie was not very good either. In fact, at times you wondered, what in the hell's going on? And on occasion, you rally him down the stretch, as Craig's brought up before, and it was almost like he was drawing things up in the sand or turf. But one of the regrets that Dave Aranda said to me, and it was, I never was able to have a connection with him. And you wonder if they would have had a full off season together. That doesn't mean that Charlie would have helped them last year. Doesn't mean that that Bohannon wouldn't have been the best option. But that's something that he still bothers him today.
I'm sure it does, because he's a guy who, thrives as a coach off those being able to reach players individually and not just as a group of how can I reach this kid individually and have that connection. He's so it's again, if it's person over player, then yeah, especially that that would track. And with Charlie, we said it a bunch of times, it was the end of the road for both of them. It was better for both of them to move along, and best of luck to Charlie now at Liberty. But I just wonder how much. I just still wonder how much his body really has in it in a game that's as physical.
Fair point, no question.
Well, I mean, there were questions about how banged up he got at Baylor, but now he's been on a Utah roster and a Liberty roster, so somebody keeps clearing him. I mean, that's, if you would have said he retired from concussions after his Baylor career, would that have surprised you at all?
Not at all.
No. But, we were told what we were told, and he always said he was fine. And, now he's been on 2 different coaching staffs, 2 different rosters, 2 different medical teams and all that. So somebody keeps clearing him. And so he's cleared. And, I'm not going to question that because I don't have the insider knowledge to say otherwise. I'm not a doctor. So I'm glad in that regard that he's healthy enough to keep playing. But by the end of his tenure in Waco, it was just really toxic, and not necessarily because of him, but because of the fans and their feelings towards him and what he was not doing well and what they as a team were not doing well because Charlie Brewer was the quarterback of the offense. And, some of that was fair, some of that wasn't fair. The frustrating thing to me was the fact that just it needed to be the fourth quarter with 4.5 minutes to go for the offense to have some semblance of actually knowing what they were doing every single week. You never saw a full, complete 4-quarter offensive showing from those teams. You just typically did not. If there's an example I'm missing out on, then please point it out to me. But it's like the 1 or 2 examples out of 100 games that we saw. I mean, it was not normal ever.
I would say that the thing about those offenses were most often it was the first and fourth quarters.
Yeah.
And in the middle, you were like, what just happened?
It was like just playing in mud.
Yeah.
And not moving anywhere. Just like sitting there just throwing mud around and just staying in the same spot for 2 quarters. I mean, that's basically what it was. And that's why people got so frustrated. And they got frustrated at him. They got frustrated at Rule. They got frustrated at whoever the OC was because, I mean, there were times they would go out there and it literally felt like they were just throwing away a series. Did it not? It'd be 3rd and 6. There was run up the middle. You can't run the ball on 1st and 10. How are you running on 3rd and 6? Like, what are you even trying to do here? I mean, it was head-scratching, and I know that some of those play calls were Jeff Nixon, and Jeff Nixon's not a dummy. And it was maybe the limitations of the quarterback or the limitations of the offensive line or whatever else, but bottom line was there was just never a steady
rhyme and
reason for anything that they did offensively. At least it never appeared to be that way. And even if there was, it never was performed to the level to where it looked like it ever made any sense. So that was the frustrating part. And then, like he's out there trying to do it what feels like basically on his own at times, and he can barely even stand, after taking another hit, whether that be in the pocket or whether that be on a scramble drill or whatever. He did some really valiant things, but those reasons were why it was frustrating. And then the fact that, when you did see those great moments from him, it was 4 minutes to go. He's like 10 of 27 for 125 yards and no touchdowns. But all of a sudden, in the last 5 minutes of the game, he throws 2 touchdowns, runs for 1, and they win the game. And it's like, what the hell?
Yeah, and probably somehow kickstarted a drive on a 3rd and 12 scramble.
The defense gets a pick. They get the ball back short field, score a touchdown, boom. It's the three. It's like it was that kind of thing. It was just the wildest stuff I've ever seen.
I know that this is not necessarily how hypnosis works, but if they could have hypnotized him to think that the entire game was 30 seconds long, like
I'm telling you,
they
man.
won every game by 35.
Yeah, but that's when it came. The light switch came on for him.
Go ahead.
I mean, that's just you talk about a gamer and a gutsy player and all these things that people say when they describe Charlie Brewer. Like that's when it showed. But when it was like the second drive of the game, instead of just a cool, calm touchdown, like it was just herky jerk or just running into a wall or whatever. But man, those last 5 minutes, you're down by 10. You'll end up winning by 4 or sending that bad boy to overtime somehow with Charlie Brewer. But
in college football, he would have been great with Don Strock, Earl Morrow, quarterbacks that came off the bench and won games. All right, coming up next, there has been interesting drama in Kentucky. Mark Stoops has built one solid football program there. And, of course, Calipari at Kentucky, they just won some games on a trip to the Bahamas. But there's been some back and forth between those two. And they're ranked in the top 25, and they've earned that. John Clay, Lexington Herald, he'll join us next to discuss Kentucky football on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, I did have, as I told you I would on Saturday, a very delicious, big, thick bone-in ribeye. Right now, they have specials for this week for you, and of course, there's the butcher shop with all the great cuts of steak that you want. Regular and jumbo lump crab meat. $16.50 a pound or $29 a pound. Smoked pork tenderloin, $4.50 a pound. Chicken tenders at $3.99 a pound. Baby back ribs at $4.25 a pound. And then the bone-in ribeye steaks, select at $8.25 and choice at $9.99 a pound. And 10% off all lunch meat and cheeses as well from, again, the butcher shop. They have pork, poultry, beef, and seafood. They have all the knickknacks and, I guess, essentials that you need up and down 2 or 3 aisles in the middle of the store, and, of course, a bakery as well. Waco Custom Marketplace at 420. Tailgate season around the corner. They are go-to for that at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you. Red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Did you know the average American pays over $500 a month for their car payment? What would you do if you didn't have to make that payment for 90 days? Where else could you use $1,500? Keep your car payments at Genco. Buy new or refinance your current vehicle and have no payments for 90 days. Take advantage of our low rates and no payments for 90 days. Only at Genco. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies insured by NCUA.
My money, my future, my credit union, Genco.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon wrap filet. And of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
John Clay, Lexington Herald leader, covers Kentucky, joins us. Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak, 365 Sports. John, thanks for your time. I want to start with the fact that Kentucky ranked in the top 25, preseason top 25, and it's been forever. Obviously, an incredible compliment to what Mark Stoops and company has done. And what's been the reaction among Kentucky fans?
Kentucky fans are very excited about the football season, coming off a 10-win year last year and a bowl win over Iowa, another winning record in the SEC. We got Will Levis back at quarterback, and they got some holes to fill on the offensive and defensive lines. But if they got some young players that they feel like are really talented, they just don't have a whole lot of experience. And if those guys come through, it should be another successful season for Kentucky, and the fans are excited about that.
How has the university begun to heal from the great coach rift of 2022?
Well, I don't know. The healing process will probably take a while. John Calipari's been in the Bahamas. They just got back yesterday. Saturday night, he said that he as he said, I said the wrong thing. Said that he would get together with Mark and that they would be fine. Mark Stoops, the football coach, they would be fine and they would iron things out. But on Saturday, that was after on the press conference on Saturday with Mark Stoops and Mitch Barnhart, and Mark was not backing down from his reaction to John's basketball school comments. In fact, if anything, Mark kind of doubled down on his comments. So from what I understand, the people over on the football side are still upset about it. We'll see what happens now that John is back in Lexington.
John, how do you think that Mitch Barnhart, Kentucky athletic director, kind of handled that whole situation? And is there anything that had previously been kind of a tiff, or was this just sort of out of nowhere for Kentucky fans?
Well, I mean, this, in any athletic department, especially when you got strong personalities, like obviously John Calipari is a very strong personality, and Mark Stoops is a very competitive guy as well. But in any athletic department, especially at a major college, you've got coaches who are telling the athletic director, hey, we need this or we need that to be able to be competitive. We need better facilities, or we need more money for support staff, that sort of thing. What doesn't happen, but what happened in this case is it spills into the public with Cal's, with what Cal said. Mitch Barnhart, the AD, he was part of the press conference after Mark Stoops on Saturday. And when Mitch talked to us, clearly Mitch is annoyed by the whole situation. He feels like that is publicly, hurt the program from the and Mitch has done a lot of good things, especially with the total sports program. And you just got the feeling that he's kind of put out with both parties. As far as anything that kind of led us to think something like this was about to happen, no, not really. But it basically goes back to ever since the loss to St. Peter's in the NCAA tournament, Calipari has been talking about, hey, we need to upgrade our practice facility. People have come from other places. He keeps mentioning the Philadelphia Phillies came in and looked at Kentucky's facilities, and they were wowed by everything, but they kind of said ho-hum to basketball. It's our understanding that Mitch Barnhart told Cal that's not a top priority right now. We have other things that we've been working on for a long time that we want to get done. So Cal's basically said, I'm going to raise the money myself, and he sort of campaigned to do that. Only in this case, he drug football into the discussion, and that's where I think I keep calling it an unforced error. I think there was an unforced error on Cal's part.
So the last 61 years, nobody's had a better record than Mark Stoops in Kentucky football. Blanton Collier about the same, and, of course, the great Bear Bryant before that, and they're having to deal with this?
Right, yeah. Mark is going into this is his 10th season. No Kentucky football coach has been there for 10 seasons. He needs one more win to tie Bear Bryant. But really, Mark made the comment on Saturday, some other programs might have been, but this program was not born on third base. And from what I understand about what's going on over there at UK, they're kind of using that in the football side, they're using that as a rallying cry. See, we're still not getting the respect we deserve. And, coaches, they love the us against the world thing. So I think they're kind of using this as a rallying cry over there that, people are still not giving us enough credit. We still have a lot to prove. So I think it's that they're using that as motivation as well.
I love it. I don't like it for Kentucky to deal with it, but I love the fact Mark Stoops is confident enough where he is. He's been there for as long as he's been to sit there to a guy that we know Kentucky basketball and its tradition and basically fire back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're in the locker room, you think, that you say, this guy's got my back. This coach has got my back. He's fighting for me. And I think it's a rallying cry on the team. And that's Mark's personality. And I think Mark, I think he said, he showed his players, he showed the fans, and there is a diehard football following, even through the bad times. There's a core group of Kentucky football fans. I think Mark showed them, I'm not going to take a back seat anyway. I'm not going to back down from anybody, even if it's John Calipari. And, from his standpoint, I mean, you're out trying to recruit, and other schools in the SEC. Of course, we know nobody uses negative recruiting, but if they did use negative recruiting, they're telling prospects, why do you want to go to Kentucky? It's a basketball school. And now they're going to tell them, why do you want to go to Kentucky? Even the basketball coach said publicly they're a basketball school. They don't care about football. And that's what Mark Stoops is fighting against. So, I was talking with somebody else. What if Mark Stoops was to say, yeah, Kentucky's struggling right now in basketball. They just had a 9-16 season and they lost to St. Peter's. You should put, football, there should be more interest and more resources put into football. But as Mark said the other day, I stay in my lane. I think Mark feels like he could have made some comments in the past, but he didn't do that. So he took offense that John did.
John, this is a team, though, that schedule-wise, outside of a couple of early things that will be tough for them, it kind of sets up for them. Does, in your opinion, kind of where the momentum will hinge on winning at Ben Hill Griffin, a place they have not won in a long, long time, and then winning again when they go to Oxford?
Yeah, I mean, obviously those are two big games. So schedule, I think that the schedule does set up well for them. They have 8 home games. They do go to Florida early in the year. They did beat Florida a couple of years ago, which was the first time they had beaten Florida in Gainesville in a long, long time. So they do have some confidence that they can get that done. Billy Napier, I think, is going to do a good job at Florida, but it's still a transition period there. It may take him a year or two to really get the Gators going. So that's an opportunity. They lost to Ole Miss in the COVID year in Lexington, 42-41, a really tough loss for Kentucky. That's a big game. South Carolina, Shane Beamer had a good first year at South Carolina. Kentucky's beaten them 7 out of the last 8, but I think that'll be another key game. So, I think Kentucky's goal is they play Georgia on November 17th here in Lexington. I think Georgia's still head and shoulders above everybody else in the East. But I think Kentucky's goal is they want that game to mean something on November 17th when they play them. They may not beat Georgia. I don't think they're quite in Georgia's league. Like I said, I don't think anybody in the SEC East is in Georgia's league. But they would like for that game to mean something as far as who goes to Atlanta when the two teams play in late November.
John, the beat writers always know a bit more than just kind of the general stories about a team. And so what I mean by that is if people talk about Kentucky football, a lot of the time it's going to be about the quarterback and Levis, and certainly he's one of the big stories. But outside of Will Levis, what is the story to you for Kentucky football heading into 22?
Well, I think there's a couple. One is Chris Rodriguez, the running back, who ran for over 1,300 yards last year. He was hit with a DUI, pled guilty to a DUI from back in May. They won't comment yet about his availability. Will he be suspended for any games? Although we've been able to watch one practice, he was running with the first team in that practice. The other question is, as I mentioned earlier, is the offensive and defensive lines. They got 2 new offensive tackles. They moved guard Eli Cox to center, so they had an opening there in the guard spot. That the big blue wall, as they call it, has been a strength of the offense. They need some reinforcements there. And on defense, they lost Josh Paschal, second-round pick for Detroit, interior defensive lineman. They also lost their nose tackle. They've got, like I said, some young guys who were heralded when they signed them, but now they've got to step up and show that they were worthy of those clippings. Another guy is a true freshman, Deion Walker, out of Detroit, who everybody's really buzzed about on the defensive line. I think those are it always starts with the trenches, and I think that's going to be a big key to the season, how the offensive and defensive line, how those young players perform.
John, on the Sikkim365.com in the premium section, they posted the top 25, and then they posted how everybody voted. Of course, Baylor is covered, Sikkim 365. That's what we do, but we try to cover everybody. But I was asked to ask you, I think you had Baylor ranked 22nd. They're 10th in the AP poll and about the same thing, I guess, in the coaches poll. And it's not like they don't have some things they have to replace despite having both the offense and defensive line almost all back. You had them at 22. What did you think about Baylor?
I mean, I like Baylor, and it's hard to tell on the preseason vote. I mean, you're not going to make everybody happy with your vote. Probably could have voted them a little higher. I don't have anything against Baylor. I think Dave Aranda's a heck of a coach who's done a heck of a job, especially last season there. And I fully expect them to be a factor there, in the Big 12 race. Especially in the preseason when you're going off of what you think is going to happen, it's hard to know. But I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the year that vote makes me look bad, and Baylor probably is closer to the top 10 than I had them.
I responded by saying this. There's a couple of awards that I vote for, and it's made public. And a lot of times you're not voting to piss off a fan base. You're voting to hopefully.
Well, the season's definitely here. Yeah, we're complaining about poll votes. Yeah,
and it's great. But my point is that there have been times, I'm sure, when a fan base is upset about a ranking or whatever early, and then at the end of the year, I'm not saying yours proves out to be the case or not, but at the end of the year, a team might go 7-5 and struggle, and nobody's going to contact the guy that voted him 22nd and say, hey, by the way, I was wrong. And that's part of the fun, great passion of college football and fans.
Oh, absolutely. And those of us who vote in the AP poll, especially in the modern era where you've got social media and where those votes are made public, you're going to hear from fans that are upset. That's part of what makes it fun. That's part of what makes college football fun, because of the great interest that's in the sport and the great fan bases. And certainly Baylor has one of those.
My favorite response to people who go, "Do you even watch all of these games?" And I'm like, "Do you? How can you?"
Good point. Might have to use that. Might have to steal that one.
It's a great argument. It's a great debate. It's great for talk shows and even message boards and social media. I have a historical note about Kentucky, what Mark Stoops has done. Since their first year ever, 105, 6, or 7 years of football, they've had 4 teams win 10 games or more. Now, teams play more games now than ever before. Bear Bryant did it once. Fran Kersey, is that right, that did it once?
Yeah,
as well?
Fran Kersey, right.
And then Stoops has done it twice, and he's done it twice in the last 4 years. That's where he's got Kentucky football, and that's impressive. We appreciate that. Anyone else with John Clay? Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
John Clay, Lexington Herald leader on the Calipari-Stoops cat fight, and also that's pretty damn impressive if you think about what he's done at Kentucky. They've also won 4 consecutive bowl games as well, and 6 consecutive bowl game appearances.
Before we finish up this, I just want to throw out, Fran Frischel had a great tweet on this the other day, but sad to say I have to agree with Coach Calipari in this regard. Yes, UK, Arizona, Kansas, Gonzaga, the Big East may be called basketball schools, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's not where the money is. I'm not sure UK wouldn't give up basketball just to stay in the SEC. Again, yeah, the money's coming from football, Cal. I mean, it is.
There is always the debate of what schools would give up any other national championship that they've won in any sport if they could win one in football. And there's a bunch of schools that would say, I'll take football over and give up whatever else it is. I don't know. Baylor winning the men's national championship was as amazing a moment as Baylor Athletics has ever had. And I don't think anyone's given that up. If you could say you win a national championship of football, that would be incredible. But there are some schools that would do that. And so that's always kind of fun. In Kentucky, probably Duke, North Carolina, and a few others, Kansas, when it comes to basketball. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. PettyClinicalOT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and as you've gotten older, maybe used to be. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, from ED and sex drive loss to body fat, to not sleeping as well, to your energy and focus not being as good or as strong or as focused and laser as it was. And that could be testosterone. Could be some other things as well. But Dr. Kent Petty can help you out. Go to PettyClinicalOT.com. Top corner left side, you can sit there and get a phone number and an email and contact them. Tell them I sent you. And what they'll do is set you up with blood work. They will set you up, take care of your blood work and the appointment, then get the results, and Dr. Petty will study them and get back with you. And if your testosterone is lower than it should be, or quite a bit lower than it should be, he can give you the option of a program to help you increase your testosterone levels and maybe, and most likely, take care of these symptoms if it's 1, 2, or 3 of them that you have. PettyClinicalOT.com.
During the Make This the Summer event, Allen Samuels is celebrating with an incredible lineup of new 2022 models, like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power, style, and a smooth ride you'd expect from a Jeep. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a 3rd row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
3rd and goal at the 8. Bohannon looking, he's got it! Touchdown, Tyquan Thornton!
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We'll hear from Jerry DePaula in a moment. Covers Pitt football, the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. We have shown you the AP Top 25 and gone over that like we did with the coaches poll a week ago. And, of course, focused in on a couple of the teams that are in it, including now Pittsburgh coming off 11-3, Kenny Pickett and company, and so much more. Jerry DePaula joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Is Pitt about where you thought they should be, Jerry?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they're a top 10 team, not yet. And I think they have a chance to be. It's sitting right there for them. If they can knock off West Virginia and Tennessee to open the season. It's the first time since 1986 Pitt is opening up with 2 Power 5 teams at the beginning of their schedule. So there's the opportunity to be really good this year. I mean, whether they do it or not, a lot's going to depend on the new quarterback. A lot's going to depend on these wide receivers and how much of a gap is going to be between what Jordan Addison did and what these guys are going to do this year. You know, Pat Narduzzi was very, very active in the transfer portal. I mean, he took a hit with Addison going to USC, but he also picked up Buck Means from Louisiana Tech. I talk about these guys like they're free agents, and what they actually are. They literally are free agents. And the Canetta Mudfield, freshman All-American from Akron, has done a really good job at camp so far this summer. So, and of course, that defensive line, they're talking about it being one of the best in the country. And Kalijah Cansey in the middle of it is one of the best tackles in the country. And Habakkuk Baldonado is probably going to be a high NFL draft pick next spring at defensive end. So they got a chance to be good. They have talent. He's recruited very well, and they're older too. That's one thing you don't see a lot in college football. We see it more now because of the bonus COVID year. But everyone on the offensive line is 23 years going on 24. all 5 starters. And, that makes a big difference. When you're 23 and a half and you're going against 18 and 19-year-olds, you can blow open a lot of holes in that line just because of your physical strength and maturity. So Pitt, there's a lot of expectations on Pitt this year, a lot of expectations, and people are going to be really disappointed if they end up with another 8-4 or 7-5 season. But the optimists in some of these fans have them, winning the Coastal Championship again, and it all comes down probably to that last game of the season against Miami 2 days after Thanksgiving in Coral Gables.
How do you feel the transition from Mark Whipple, who left to go to Nebraska, is going on the offense, and especially, with the new quarterback in Slovis?
I think it's going well. I think Pat Narduzzi, was willing to, let Mark Whipple hand the keys to the Cadillac to Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison just because of who they are. They were, of course, All-American talent, and they passed the ball, a little bit more than they threw it last year, or than they ran it last year. This year, it's going to be flipped a little bit, and you see them, running the ball a lot more, not just at the end of the fourth quarter, but they're going to be running to set up to pass rather than pass to set up to run. And they got, like I said, a 4 or 5 starting offensive line returning from last year, and 3 running backs returning from last year. Izzy Abanikanda, Rodney Hammond Jr., and Vincent Davis, who's been around for a long time. Remember him from 2 years ago when he ran for over 200 yards against Georgia Tech in the finale of the 2020 season. So they got a lot of experienced guys on hand, and they're 11-3 last year. People are going to expect the same thing this year, but I think the Coastal was a lot better. Miami is a lot better. Pitt lost to Miami last year, so that was at home too. So now I got to go down there to play them, and Pitt doesn't normally, traditionally doesn't play well against Miami, and that'll be the team they have to beat. But the other thing about the second half of Pitt's season, 4 of the last 6 games were on the road. That's almost unheard of. You play all your home games early, and that's good. But when it's right cutting time and you really have to start winning games, you got to do it on the road. Virginia, North Carolina, Miami, Louisville, very difficult games. They have to win if they want to get to where they want to go. And they're talking national championship. They're just not talking ACC championship. You talk to the players, they think they can win the national championship. But when they break down before practice, they huddle up in the middle of the field before practice. And instead of saying ACC champs like they used to, it's national champions. And they mean it too.
So for a team with such high expectations, it looks like we'll learn quite a bit in those first couple of weeks, huh? How about the backyard brawl back for the first time in over a decade in Tennessee right after that? First things first, how are the thoughts surrounding getting back together with the Mountaineers for the old backyard brawl?
Well, I think the players are starting to learn about the rivalry. I mean, they haven't played since 2011, and that was, 11 years ago. And so these guys were in middle school, and somewhere else, and a lot of them somewhere else other than Pittsburgh or West Virginia, or the last time these two teams played. And they're getting a little sense of it, I'm sure. And the fans are more into it than anybody else. The game's already sold out.
Right.
They're expecting 70,000 people at Acrisure Stadium, formerly Heinz Field, for that game. And in West Virginia, interesting storyline is JT Daniels, quarterback from USC, transferred from USC to West Virginia. Just like Keaton Slovis transferred from USC to Pitt. Those guys were teammates for a while on the West Coast. So, and the offensive coordinator, Grant Harrell, is a former West Virginia offensive coordinator, is a former OC at USC. So, there's a lot of storylines that are being cooked up in this game. And, to me, with all the expectations and all the ambitious goals this team has set for itself, the game is almost a must-win. And Tennessee, after that, is the same thing. If you want to be national champions and you want to be contending, to be a top 5 team, this season, you got to win those 2 games. I mean, they're good teams. They're not the best teams in the Big 12 or the SEC, but they're good teams, and they would be impressive victories if they can get them. If they don't get them, then fans are just going to realize, or people around the country just realize, it's just another 7-5, 8-4 Pitt team.
How sad, and how many times do you have to catch yourself? Because you did a great job mentioning the new stadium, the name of it, and then saying formerly Heinz Field.
Well, when I write it, I pretty much cutting that down pat. Trying to get the spelling is what at first to get the spelling down. Once I got the spelling down, then I started thinking about it. I haven't been in Acrisure Stadium and since it's been called Acrisure Stadium. So I think that it's not a big problem for me. But a lot of people are still going to call it Heinz Field. You know, in the ketchup bottle, which used to be in the one end zone, anytime Pitt or the Steelers would get into the red zone inside the 20-yard line, the big red ketchup bottles would light up. They took those ketchup bottles and took them away from the field and put them somewhere in the stadium. I'm not sure where. They do have some kind of a financial deal with Heinz, just not like they have with Acrisure. I think Acrisure is paying $15 million or $10 million maybe for the next 15 years, which is what makes that $150 million. Heinz is only paying $57 million, so it's a big change for the Steelers, and the pitch is going right along with it.
Yeah, I'd take those ketchup bottles down too.
Yeah, no. Jerry DePaula, Pittsburgh Tribune Review, and talking Pitt football, and also lately the name change of Heinz Field, which again, you have to, right? I mean, if you're the name, you want the name. You want to be represented. The running back, and I was asked by Chris Abanikanda, is that right? Or how do you say his last name?
Israel Abanikanda. They call him Izzy Abanikanda.
How the expectations? He was asking, is he getting it over 1,200 yards rushing? You know, obviously expectations for him. Your thoughts about him?
Well, he's a hard runner. He has a lot of speed. They talk about his speed a lot. In fact, he's a kickoff returner. He's returned kickoffs for Pitt. I think he had one for a touchdown last year. I really think that he's a guy that's going to be their number one back. But as far as getting 1,200 yards, that would pretty much double what he had last year. But like those other two guys, Hammond and Davis, are going to get their carries too. And of course, they're going to have to throw the ball some too. So I doubt he'll get 1,200 yards, but I can see him getting 1,000, 900 to 1,000 yards if he stays healthy. He's had some problems staying healthy. Actually, got hurt in the bowl game against Michigan State, Pete's Bowl, and missed a good part of that game. So if he stays healthy, he has a chance to have a big season. He's big. He's a solid guy. He looks like an NFL running back. He has that look with the broad shoulders and the big thighs. So he's primed to have a good season. But everybody here on Pitt's team in that locker room seems to be primed to have a good season. But a lot of us are just waiting. We want to see it first.
They're really front loaded on home games early in the year. Do you think that will help them build that role?
Yeah, I think it's nice being home early. It really is. They got to go to Western Michigan, though, at the third game of the season, maybe. That's the team that beat them last year at Heinz Field, and that was a high-scoring game. The defense has everybody back, but they had two really bad hiccups last year. They hiccuped against Western Michigan. They hiccuped against Miami, giving up a total of 82 points in those games. And both of those teams now, they beat them at Heinz Field. Now they got to go on the road to play those teams. But it's nice, those first two games at home might make it easier to win those two games. Like I said, they're must-wins. They're home games. They're home games against Power 5 teams. They're tone setters for the season. And, you set a tone whether you win or you lose. You set a good tone if you win. You set a sour tone if you lose. And that's why those games are so important. But having them at home is a little bit of an advantage. But, Pitt has lost some big games at home before. And like I said, they lost two of them last year at home.
So, Jerry, has the Jordan Addison, hate, dislike, however you want to phrase it, has that kind of cooled off over the last few months since he made his decision?
Well, I think hate is kind of the wrong word. Pitt fans, are probably disgruntled and disappointed and, didn't like it that he was chasing the money. But when the players, we talk to the players, and, of course, they're going to be a PC and say the right thing. They said, hey, he did what is best for him and his family, and we don't begrudge him anything. He played for us for 2 years and did a great job. Pitt wouldn't have been ACC champions last year without Jordan Addison. They won 11 games last year, but they won a lot of close games last year. And that was the North Carolina game comes to mind. That was in overtime. The Virginia game where he made that catch at the end of the game to seal the victory. I don't think anybody hates Jordan because he had a lot of friends in the locker room. He wasn't exactly a team leader. He was only a sophomore at the time. But I think it's cooled off, and Pitt has moved on. Like I said, they have other receivers who they think maybe they weren't as talented as Jordan Addison, but they could be nearly as productive, some of them anyway.
Yeah, I guess the hate would be more towards the situation, not the player, but the situation of just that's allowed to happen nowadays. Yeah, it's frustrating.
The NIL thing where guys can, get enticed as they're being wooed, to go either transfer or to coming out of high school. This isn't what college sports was all about, but it's what it's all about now. And you just got to live with it.
Jerry, I know everyone might have a separate opinion on this, whether it's West Virginia or Pitt fans, but they played forever, over 100 times. There was the hiatus when Pitt left the Big East and joined the ACC, and then West Virginia soon after that, of course, was a part of the Big 12. They didn't play for a long, long time. They announced that they would start playing again a few years back. Why did they not figure out a way to play during the hiatus?
Well, Pitt, the Big 12, I guess, only has 3 non-conference games.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the ACC has 4, so it's a little easier for Pitt. And, Pitt was always has been trying to play Penn State, after that series ended in 2019. But the Big Ten only has 3 non-conference games. That's part of it. And the Pitt-Penn State thing, I don't think Penn State wants to play Pitt, even if they had 12 non-conference games. The Pitt-West Virginia thing sort of died down because you go to different conferences and you're in a new conference and you try to set yourself up to do what's best for your program. But I'm glad that, smart people got together and decided, put this thing back together. Now they're going to play 8 times in the next 11 seasons. They should play every year like they used to. Pitt used to play West Virginia and Pitt every year. But in my lifetime, I'm 68 years old. I don't think I'm going to see another Pitt-Penn State game. But as nice as there's going to be 8 Pitt-West Virginia games in the next 11 years. And I think that the relationship will continue and they'll keep playing into the next decade, too.
Jerry, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Jerry DePaula, Pittsburgh Tribune Review on Pittsburgh. We mentioned the AP Top 25. It's just preseason. It means nothing, but it's great to discuss and kind of break down some of the nuggets. In Pittsburgh, despite losing Pickett, despite losing Whipple, and here they are expected to be very strong. Those are 2 really quality starts, 2 games, 2 opponents, even at home to start off the year.
I mean,
they would set them up.
They could very well start off 0-2. I mean, they very well could. For all the talk about titles and everything like that, or they could just have 2 big wins and they could really make a statement early on. That Western Michigan game, as you mentioned, in week 3 will be interesting. So, yeah, that first month, and they close it out with Rhode Island, but that first month of West Virginia, Tennessee, and then at Western Michigan, we'll know quite a bit in a short amount of time about the Pittsburgh Panthers and where they're going to be, trajectory-wise throughout the rest of the season.
I've always enjoyed Pat Narduzzi a little bit. I guess you and I had
Michigan
a really
State
good
Cotton Bowl, yeah,
the Cotton Bowl at Michigan State, and he had the most relaxed answer about that offense as a defensive coordinator I'd ever heard, and that the thing we'd seen all year was like people get gassed, and he's like, I don't care if I'd rather them score in 2 plays than 8, because if they score in 2, then you can get some Gatorade. And I was like, oh, well, that's an interesting way to think about it. And kind of worked out for them that way in that game, too. That was the last one. I believe that was the last game he was at Michigan State before he took the Pitt job.
He might have been on his way out. Was that already announced that he was headed to Pittsburgh?
I don't remember. That's been so long ago. That was 2015-ish.
14, 15. It would have been the 15 Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, that was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
8 years ago. 7 years ago. Yeah. So I don't remember. It was all within that time frame. Yeah. I think it might have been known that he was on his way out, but I'm not positive on that.
All right. On the chat room, on the text line, if you would like, at 254-339-1122. Brett McMurphy earlier today mentioning which of the top 10 teams in the AP poll, which of the top 10 teams in the AP poll will not be ranked at the end of the year. Not in the top 10, will not be ranked. Here's a stat from him. Every year for the past 20 years, except 2019, there has been at least one preseason top 10 team that finished unranked. And last year, North Carolina, A&M, and Iowa State were the 3 that finished unranked after being in the top 10. Which of the top 10 this year in the AP poll, you could mention 1, 2, or 5, but which of them is most likely, not that they won't be ranked 17th or 12th or whatever, but unranked at the end of the year? Interesting question. Last year, North Carolina had the momentum. They had Howell.
We playing a game here?
Yeah. I mean,
okay. Well, let's go Alabama. Well, that's not happening. They're not going to be outside the top 25. Right?
Yeah.
Nope.
Can you pull that list back up?
Oh, okay. I just lost it.
There you go, Craig.
There we go.
Okay. Ohio State. Well, that's not happening. Georgia, that's not happening. Clemson, not likely. Notre Dame, not likely. Now I think is where we get to where, and I'm not picking on A&M here either, but they were in this list last year as a team. So are they going to make it another year in a row? I don't know. That's going to be borderline to me. But yeah, I mean that's the first one where I could see them not being in the top 25 at the end of the year.
Now I do think A&M probably played in one their bowl game last year. They probably wind up in the top 25. But again, that's all part of it. I think Utah again should be rated above both A&M and Notre Dame. So I don't see them outside this. Michigan, I know they're really good up front, which leads me to believe on both sides of the ball, which leads me to believe that they won't be outside the preseason top 25. But they have not done it year after year yet under Harbaugh, which is why, it's been so stressful up there.
All right.
I don't see Oklahoma out of the top 25.
Why not?
But just because it's hard. But again, lots of turnover there.
Listen, and Oklahoma fans lose their mind when people say that, and there's been things written, including Kendall Cowell, who did this, but there's just enough where you could see if they slip a couple of different times. And then again, they could be right where they've always been, right there at the very top.
Going back to Michigan, because I thought about them too, but their schedule, man. I mean, Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, Maryland, and then finally at Iowa. So there's, an interesting game. Then at Indiana, whatever, they should win that one. Penn State, Michigan State, at Rutgers, Nebraska, Illinois, at Ohio State. So I don't know. I think that they'll probably.
There's no Wisconsin on there. The non-conference schedule seems to be.
Yeah, I mean, they should be 4-0 going into the Iowa game. If they're not, then something went drastically wrong. But they should absolutely be 4-0 heading into October 1st and going into Iowa City. Now, that's where you could get a kind of a fork in the road. Because then if they win that game, then they're going to beat Indiana. So they would be 6-0.
Yep.
Going into Penn State on October the 15th with Penn State and Michigan State back-to-back in Ann Arbor. So I'm going to say that they stay in the top 25 for those reasons.
So number 9, Oklahoma. We mentioned because of the unknown, but let's say it's hard to think of them outside the top 25.
I was going to say, I think my two likely ones were A&M and Baylor, honestly. I mean, they're the ones that I think. I mean, Baylor's schedule, again, people talk about what all's coming back, and I get it, and I don't blame anybody for feeling the way that they do about how great this team can be. But, I mean, look at their road schedule. That's not easy. That's not something that they've just done before. They've just gone and ripped off wins against West Virginia and Texas and Oklahoma and, Iowa State. I mean, they've done part of that, but they've never ran that whole gamut ever.
At Provo, at Ames, at Morgantown.
Yeah.
At Lubbock, too. I mean, that's something they've had to do.
Well, Morgantown's on a Thursday night. Texas is in Austin on a Friday night. Yeah. I mean, so they're on the road probably against all the best teams. They're in Lubbock.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't mean like the Tech's going to be one of the best teams. I don't expect that. But
hard places to play.
The hardest places to play in the Big 12, they're going to be on the road.
Ames,
Morgantown,
Lubbock. Yeah.
Every single one of them. They can't beat TCU to save their life. I mean, they can. They've beaten them recently. But, I mean, last year is just such a bad taste in my mouth still, and I'm sure in theirs. But you just my point being, you just never know with that rivalry because they should have beaten TCU probably about 6 straight times at this stage, and I'm being a little bit over there.
Remember the year Rule, they finally they got to 7-6, and they lost that game at home. They blew a tire in that game when they scored 10, 12 points.
When Jalen Rager outscored them?
Yeah. Bill, I think it's
2 plays.
Bill Kennelly or Bill Connolly. We've had him on. He's from ESPN. Here's some of the things, Connolly. When this was brought up, and he was trying to look at the same question that McMurphy put up, one of the top 6 will win the national title. 2 of the top 10 will end up unranked. He said, sorry, Baylor. Then, of course, there were questions from those who wanted to know about this. And again, you may not want to hear this, but I love to listen to what could be true. Because teams that lose the vast majority of their skill core and secondary tend to regress, and as do teams that were 4-1 in one-score games. And that's an important note. Teams that made huge leaps the year before, Aranda, absolutely rules, but they do check many of the regression boxes. And that's one of the things about, do they sustain it? I feel like because of what they do have coming back, both lines, offense, defense, your quarterback, and much more, then perhaps you should be able to sustain it. But there are some of those trends, those analytics that people do look at as well.
Yeah, they lost the most draft picks they've ever had. Many of them leaders. The games that we just mentioned, Blake Shapen seems to be a good quarterback, but let's repeat, he's played all of 2.5 games basically. And I guess if you throw in garbage time, he's played in close to 3 games now. But mostly 2.5 is what, go to the Kansas State game, then the Tech game, then the Big 12 title game, and that's all he played in basically last year. So, yeah, I mean, this is what I've been saying is, like, I get all the reasons why everybody's, like, gung-ho, Big 12 champs again and top 10 and this and that. But, I mean, it doesn't take much time to see how they could go, like, completely the other direction. And especially if there's just, like, God forbid, like an injury to Shapen or something like that. I mean, just, my gosh, that's because they don't have the veteran defense in the back seven that they've had. So, I mean, that's going to take some time, I would think, to adjust to no matter what good players they've had. I mean, just on and on and on. So, yeah, I mean, if you're playing a guessing game, I'd say Baylor's definitely, probably along with A&M is one of those that I would, if you have to pick, I'd pick those two as the most likely.
It's hard to get there. It's hard to sustain it. Sometimes when you really look at what Alabama has done and Ohio State and a lot of others, it is truly what Nebraska did for many, many years, Florida State, Miami, and they're trying to get to that point where they can sustain it. If you're good, you do. And maybe there's going to be some young, skilled people that do rise to the occasion. I think there's some really good talent. We just haven't seen them do it yet.
And I want to say, too, I mean, Bill Connolly, and all due respect to him and everybody else that does these formulas and these, I mean, I'm dumb at math. Like, I just can't do it, never have been able to do it, never interested me to do it. So I leave the FPI and all this other stuff to the S&P Plus and everything, all that stuff. But those things aren't always completely accurate.
No.
I mean, they're not nearly
Otherwise,
always
those guys
accurate.
would be billionaires because they could bet on the trends.
Exactly. And I don't know how many people go back, kind of like your thing at the end of the year. Oh, I was wrong about that. Sorry to tell you. I don't know how often that really happens. And I do think he does come out and say, like, hey, we were way off on this. And it's admitting, like, this is not perfect. There are outliers and there are, things that come into play, like human being emotions and things like that, that you can't account for. So, yeah, I see where he's coming from, and I see that point of view, but, it's not perfect, like you said.
Quick text from Caleb in Michigan. Thank you, Caleb. SportsCenter, ESPN, they put up the top 15 AP poll, just the first 15, and then made a point to highlight that UT was not in the top 25. Why even point this out specifically? Your thoughts, please. I don't know. Maybe because they did get that first place vote in the coaches poll, and so maybe it's it. And the fact that they're not in the top 25 is not a surprise. If they earn it, get back in it, good for them. Yeah, probably to poke fun at it a little bit. Probably seeing the reaction of people to the fact that they did get a first place vote. Like, see, they're on this one, top 25. Like that, I could see it. I'd have to see the segment to see that, but that's probably what I'm guessing it was. When we come back, Kendall Couch, Sikkim 365 columnist, he is incredible at what he does. And his thoughts about how does Baylor, and you could almost insert maybe other names, sustain and continue to beat people that are making much, much more money, and what are the keys of what they have to continue to be successful in football and maybe compete for national titles. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They have a lot of great deals and great customer service over at Richard Carr. They are the people you can count on, and I've had to count on them a couple of different times over, the last year. Definitely a couple of different times in terms of my vehicle getting beat up for one reason or another, and they have been the people that I've counted on to go and get my vehicle fixed. So you can do that too, but there's other great reasons to go over to Richard Carr right now, like buying a car. Don't wait any longer. They have new cars and trucks arriving weekly at the dealership. And come by or log on to richardcarr.com to view their in-stock inventory, and you can cut in line by joining their inbound vehicle list to reserve a brand new Buick GMC or Cadillac before anyone else. If you need a car today, well, the inbound vehicle list is not for you. The inbound vehicle list is you're looking to buy new, you're looking to get into something as quick as possible once it arrives, microchip issues, all the things that are delaying vehicles arriving in the lot. That is your key to basically cut in line and reserve your spot for when those new vehicles arrive. But if you're not looking to buy new, you're not worried about waiting, you want to get in something like I said today, they've got they've got used trucks on the lot, over 95 quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock. All of them have gone through a 172-point inspection, and you'll get top dollar on your trade with dozens of lending options. Richard Carr says yes to loans when others say no. So check out the people you can count on. 23 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr's built a reputation as the dealership that you can go to count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
We're fighting hard at Pickup Outfitters in our battle to end truck nudity. But it's not just about putting an outfit on a naked truck, it's about making sure you have the very best customer service. So we offer the Pickup Outfitters Lifetime Installation Guarantee. Over time, sometimes your outfit needs a little tune-up, maybe some tightening, adjusting, whatever. If you outfitted your truck at Pickup Outfitters, that tune-up is absolutely no charge for the remainder of the time you own that truck. We also offer free warranty assistance. If for any reason you need to use your warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed and kids club, 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Brad Boozer, Boozer Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. I've seen people walk in there. First of all, you have so much to show, whether necklaces, bracelets, rings. You have the watches. You have numerous great watches as well. You really have pretty much everything, don't you, when it comes to jewelry?
That's correct. Kind of a one-stop shop and all. And the fact that we have the 2 jewelers on staff, the repairs we can do, the fixing of your jewelry, and the remaking of any jewelry has really set us apart from anybody else.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Jack McKenzie went to football practice. Craig's going to be able to do that on 2 or 3 occasions this week. They'll be doing that throughout the week, and then they shut it down.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. I think is what I just said earlier. So they've got media all 5 days this week, and then they shut it down. They shut it down to go quiet, go dark, and get behind closed doors and get ready for Albany in week 1. So we're almost here. This is the final week of open practices as far as the windows availability and the media session. So, yeah, it's upon us now.
Kendall Kaut, Sikkim365.com. He's also a brilliant writer for not just football, basketball. Men's basketball his forte, but he's been doing a lot when it comes to football as well. Kendall, how can Baylor How can Baylor compete for national titles against exploding SEC and Big Ten revenue? And you could almost, I said this, Kendall, you could probably put a few other names of programs, but you're focused, of course, on the article with Baylor. And that is a question. How can you continue to lose over the next few years if you do 30, 40 million a year and keep up?
Yep, Smokey, always a pleasure to be on. I think the framework is every curse a blessing, every blessing is a curse for everybody. So Texas and A&M are going to have to contend with a lot of money, and you certainly would prefer that problem. You think of it as a good problem, but with every problem that Texas and A&M are going to have, they're going to realize these are kind of new problems they have to deal with. So your A&M suddenly you have to deal with. If everybody on your team's making $500,000 a year and some are making several $1 million a year, is discipline different for them? I just finished reading a new book about Nick Saban's leadership strategies, and one kind of issue they identified for Nick Saban when he was with the Dolphins is that he couldn't discipline his guys quite the same way in the NFL he could in college. So you'd still want those problems, but they're going to create different problems for the Texases, the A&Ms of the world, the Michigans of the world, and then you kind of compare them to Baylor. Look, again, I reiterate, you would want to have Texas problems, you'd want to have Michigan's problems, but you look at what Baylor has, they're going to still be able to offer something. The Royals have won a World Series in baseball. Lots of teams have competed in baseball, not having the most revenue. You can complain about it, or you can find a way to be better and overcome your circumstances.
Kendall, I have to ask you this before I forget, but based on your Twitter interactions about 3 weeks ago, have you heard of Jeff Levy?
You know, Paul Catalina, I have heard about him. I'd forgotten. I looked at the Wikipedia page, and then I remembered all of a sudden, wait a minute, was he the Baylor running back coach before, and he's even an offensive coordinator at a few spots? But I really appreciate, hundreds of OU fans reminding me that Jeff Levy is indeed the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. As someone who covered Baylor, I was just totally unaware of that.
Well, there's finally some games coming up, so it is going to be interesting to see how that interaction continues this year. But Kendall, we got your back, and you know that, and agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. I'm skeptical myself in some ways as well as somebody who's an Oklahoma guy. So, yeah, right on. But when you talk about the inequity, is that why it was kind of brilliant for Joey McGuire? Do you see it that way, to have this sort of flat line basis for everybody in his program, to have NIL basically including some of the walk-ons, to keep that everybody on the same page, so to speak?
Yeah, Craig, I think it was smart for Joey to try and say, we got to hit at least a threshold that guys will at least consider us. And then if you're Joey, if you're the rest of his staff, James Blanchard, some of the other guys, I think he's looking to bring in for his staff that will be pretty good beyond just the crew he's assembled right now. You got to be a little different. I think what Joey's doing differently is he's trying to take the Matt Rule idea of, we're going to get the best athletes possible. Joey and the staff he's assembled will coach them up. And so if they can offer a guy at 16 who's really good, kind of like Baylor did with Austin Novosad, you offer them early, you identify them early, you get some of those guys who might only be low 3 stars originally, and they become high 4 stars, or the guys who signed at stayed 2 stars, kind of like Baylor did with Xavion Howard. You trust the evaluations, and that's something they have to do a little bit differently. Whereas if you're Alabama, you're Auburn, you might say, we're not going to offer any of these guys till they're 17, and even if we do, we're going to pull back some of our offers. So it will be different. It will be challenging for them. But in the same way that Cincinnati, Houston, and a host of Group of 5 schools powered through, I mean, TCU got to the Big 12 by being better than Baylor was for all of its tenure in the Mountain West Conference. They're going to be teams that succeed outside those Power 2 leagues, and there are going to be a lot of people miserable and rich in the Big 10 and SEC.
One of the notes, and I saw this in your article, again, Sikkim365.com, Kendall Kaut, the article about Baylor, how can they compete for national titles against exploding SEC and Big Ten revenue, is one of the things that I do think sometimes people they don't gloss over, is Aranda, as what seems to be as good a person as you could possibly be, humble and all of that, is a cutthroat killer. Because he fired Larry Fedora right after the season was over. And it was obvious the offense struggled, but some would have said, as you said in the article, well, it was COVID. He also then made the decision on a quarterback that's beloved in Gary Bohannon to go with Blake Shapen. He has not been afraid, has he not, to make decisions that are in the best interest of the program, not just, okay, well, let's see how it works out.
He hasn't spoken. It kind of leads to, you never want to think about a man losing his job, but I almost kind of wonder what it would be like to get fired by Dave Aranda. Does he sit you down and explain, we looked at everything and, I explored everything in competitive maturity, and you're like, Dave, you can just tell me what's going on. Does he meander for a little bit? I don't know. But yeah, he absolutely is cutthroat. I mean, Gary Bohannon, I don't think very many teams would have moved on from him. And when you see some of the doubts crept in about Baylor, a lot of people say, well, they've lost their quarterback. And the thing I kind of retort with is, well, they lost their quarterback because they think the next guy up is better. and that's not why they lost their quarterback, right? You can say Texas lost its quarterback in Casey Thompson, but for the Longhorns, they can say because they think Hudson Card or Quinn Ewers will be a better quarterback. So he certainly has shown he is not afraid to make the tough decisions, but he doesn't strike you as the guy who's going to fire you or have that personality, but he's done that multiple times over the last couple seasons.
Well, that's how, when Matt Rule was here, he wanted to run the team like the NFL does. But that's what pro teams do, right? If the next guy's better and it's time to move on, you make that decision.
Yeah, it's absolutely right, Paul. And there are sometimes people that get upset about that and say, oh, you got to be loyal to this guy or loyal to that guy. But the reality is if loyalty was the number one currency in college football, you can plug somebody from the stands and put them on the field because probably the greatest Baylor fan is in the stands, not on the field. The reality is there's a threshold for talent that must be achieved. Nick Saban preaches this all the time. It's recruiting for them. And you can still win titles if you're outside the top 10 eventually, just because the blue chip ratio's been true for most of the time doesn't mean it's going to be true for all of time. But everyone wants to land elite recruiting, and you got to find a way to get the best players because even the dominant coaches like Saban, what Aranda did in year one at Baylor, until you have your guys, you just can't win.
So what gives Kendall? Okay, you're going to have some programs that, let's say, are making $100 million a year, and we don't know what a Baylor or Texas Tech, for example, are going to make. We know they'll pony up as best they can through their alums, but like just pure money that's being paid. So, okay, Vanderbilt's making $60 million more per year than the Red Raiders or the Bears or the Horned Frogs or whoever. What can they do with that $60 million outside of just buying like a 3-deep? Everybody's pretty much got like the colored waterfall at this point in the brand new, facility next to the brand new reworked state. All that stuff's kind of been done or is constantly being done. So what does that extra money actually do to put a team that doesn't have great culture or facilities have been holding them back over teams who are making less but have all of those same things as well?
Yep, Craig, this is why I'm just about as absolutely certain as you can be that the players are going to get paid directly by the schools. Once the revenue has gotten this insane, it's impossible to claim these aren't employees anymore. If USC is going to have their volleyball athletes flying a plane to Rutgers, it's pretty tough to claim that your football players are not athletes when you're signing $100 million plus deals to put them on TV potentially at 9 a.m. Pacific time to play football. You just can't really make that argument anymore. And I think you saw from the Supreme Court decision, there's a little bit of reticence even to some of the arguments the NCAA's advanced recently. It only take one or two circuit courts to flip on them legally. For suddenly players are getting paid in one jurisdiction. Then you'll see if you're, Georgia and you're worried about, okay, well, even though we didn't like paying players, if they're getting paid in Ohio, we got to pay them here. So I think once that happens, that's really when the gap happens. But as you mentioned right now, if every player has an Xbox, a PlayStation, a refrigerator, a car, and their locker, at some point it's kind of like, what can you put in a locker? How many ping pong tables does anybody need? And that's when I think paying the players happens because those two leagues will say, we're not making that big of a difference versus the Big 12 if we just have a fifth practice facility. But if we give everybody $200,000 a year, that's where they think they can make up the difference. I think that's where you have to spend the money wisely because I think it is inevitable. I'd be absolutely shocked if by 2030 the payers are not getting paid directly by the schools.
But also playing into your article, what can they also do that's you can't buy culture, right? Baylor's got culture, so they might be making $60 million less than Vanderbilt, but they've got the facilities, they've got the culture, they've got the backing, they've got the recruiting hotbed. So why can't they compete with somebody who's making $60 million? What can Vanderbilt or Kentucky or whoever do with $60 million outside of just buying a team that's going to eliminate Baylor from being able to compete, playing into your idea about them moving forward?
I think all that's absolutely correct, Craig. And the thing I'd kind of add on top of that is the challenge for college football is that the market hasn't been established for what players are worth. And so suddenly you're going to have, let's say, even between donations, ads, everything. Let's just imagine you have $150 million to spend on players, which might be an excess number at Texas or A&M. Well, the thing about the NFL is we know how much Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert are all worth in the quarterback market because we've had years and years of escalating quarterback revenue compared to what do we pay running backs, what do we pay wide receivers, what's the best left tackle make, and that sort of sets the standard for everybody in the league. The challenge that's going to happen in college football is there's not that baseline for what's the top quarterback worth, what's the top running back worth, what do you pay your best outside linebacker. So we might get to a world where Michigan screws up and offers the top right tackle $10 million, and they get to the end of the season and they realize, oh my God, we don't have any money left because we blew it on a bunch of stupid guys as compared to another team that might spend their money wisely. So this does present an opportunity if you are the teams that have $60 million compared to $140 million to say, okay, they blew all their money on these spots. Let's sign one or two good players here and then just kind of try and find 3-star talent. So there is a way it can allow them to sign one or two elite players compared to right now where it feels like Bama A&M, Texas, Ohio State are landing all the top players. So it is a chance to compete, but with no real market establishment, it's kind of weird. I mean, if you drop $200 million tomorrow on an island and you said, let's divide it up, it'd be kind of tough to figure out what's the market for everybody. So it's like if you flip the switch and went to capitalism tomorrow, you'd kind of wonder, well, what's the price of anything? And I think that's going to be tough for these college teams to figure out.
Scott Drew and Baylor basketball have talked about the culture of joy. Obviously, we've heard about it with Baylor and Dave Aranda in football, and even really with Matt Rule as well. Can you win with just a great culture no matter what's around? Talent, you have to do that. But can you win? Can culture carry you?
Culture can get you pretty far with it, Smokey. I think that certainly there is sort of a baseline level of talent you have to have. And the key thing for the Baylors, the world, the TCUs, the Oklahoma States that feel like they're going to be competitive in the new Big 12 is be good consistently. And then you hope that if you're Baylor and you win 10 games pretty consistently, you get good one season, and then you get a little lucky that the left tackle you thought was pretty good turns out to be a star. The wide receiver you thought was pretty good is a star. Maybe you land a legacy commitment. And then the year kind of hits right for you and suddenly you compete for a title. I mean, TCU a few years back when they were playing in the Mountain West, Boise State when they were playing in the Mountain West, they felt like they were good enough to win national championships. Utah when they pounded Alabama in the 2009 Sugar Bowl. Those were teams that felt like they were good enough to win national titles. I think when we take a step back, this era is just kind of weird because Nick Saban is so dominant that he's kind of adjusted the sport in a weird way. And if you don't have a coach like Nick Saban, he's going to retire eventually. I know he's 71. It feels like he'll coach till he's 95. But I think when he steps back, we might look back at this era and say this was more of the Saban era than how the era existed like this. So I think that's when culture will matter a lot more. When you look at it for Baylor basketball, they were pretty consistently an Elite 8, Sweet 16 caliber team over some of these years, some years not making the tournament. But then they got a little bit lucky with Jared Butler coming back, Davion Mitchell not quite having the sophomore season he wanted to have. But they had the culture in place, got a little bit lucky, and won a title. Every champion has to get a little bit lucky, but it's the culture that puts you in a place to get a little bit lucky in the first place.
And you can, if you want, address your Oklahoma fan base.
Smokey, I would just say I have nothing personally against Oklahoma. If Oklahoma goes 7-5 or 8-4 this season, I just want them to be prepared for that possibility. I think Brent Venables is a very good coach. I think Jeff Levy won 6 games after 6 games back in 2016. I'll offer no additional comments about what happened after Baylor won 6 games in 2016. But, I wish Oklahoma all the best in the SEC. I have nothing else to add for Oklahoma because I don't know that they'll be adding many playoff appearances in the future.
Paul, Craig, you just double down.
Hey, it's his opinion. It's his
so
thoughts.
Funny. Do you not know who Jeff Levy is? As if we didn't know him. And
and not everybody's in on the joke. They're not on Twitter or whatever. Yeah. Thanks, Kendall. Is that he went out and said, like, you got to give some context sometimes. Is that he went out and said on Twitter that he doesn't think Oklahoma's going to be as good or as dominant as they have been, which is like 20 years in a row of basically winning the Big 12 title and being in the playoff or in some BCS game or whatever. So, like, the fact that people even, like, guffaw at him saying, hey, you might not be, like, national championship level for the 21st year in a row is just shows you kind of, like, how silly and sort of blinded some fans are to not even, let that be a realistic thought in their head after a coaching change. Like, that's when you're spoiled. That's when you're just spoiled as all hell because you've been so good for so long. And yeah, he bases that on the fact that they just lost a really good coach. They lost a really good quarterback. And, yeah, Brent Venables might be good, but there's not a guarantee by any means that they're going to be to the level of what they have been, which is at least 10 wins on a yearly basis.
Yeah. And, again, like this, just so much has happened and they haven't had to deal with it. Like the transitions from Bob Stoops to Lincoln Riley could not have gone smoother.
And he said this before the Gundy stuff, too.
Yeah, exactly. So all that and the response from people was a lot of them was, well, obviously this guy's never heard of Jeff Levy, which is to me the strangest and most confusing thing about the internet.
It really is.
Because in the internet era, we have more information at our fingertips than you could possibly have ever imagined, even 20 years ago, when the internet first started to kind of take off. Everything about everybody is on there, and yet the people saying, do you know who Jeff Levy is? Well, should have known. Like,
nah, he wasn't. It wasn't like, and I know how it all ended was bad, but it's not as if he was among that staff that had Philip Montgomery, the coach at Tulsa, that had, of course, Coach Briles and Kendall and
his father-in-law, Coach Briles.
Yeah, and he was the running backs coach. And it wasn't as if you ever heard his name at that time, during that time, really up for head coaching jobs Bennett was a big personality.
He was outshadowed by his brother-in-law, Kendall Bryles.
Yeah.
So, we were well aware, guys.
And we knew them very, very well. And in fact, I know that I saw Jeff when he was at the Sugar Bowl, and that was a tough loss for Ole Miss, and I'm sure really frustrating for Levy as the offensive coach to get shut down the way they did by the Baylor defense.
I mean, I vividly remember the end of his tenure, and I remember his wife was very opinionated, as probably anybody would be when their dad was going through what he was going through, not to mention your brother and your husband. So she was, sitting there with three different people who are major people in her lives that are going through this, whatever you want to call it, sort of time period then, because this is before it all, I guess just completely finished. I mean, this was like the last interim season, basically, where she started to pop off a little bit there at the end is they just got dragged by Texas Tech at AT&T Stadium. I still have the tweet that was sent to me from her from that night. So things got really, uptight back then. But no, I don't, Jeff Lebby, despite all, whatever connections and everything, he's gone about his business. He's at, UCF. He's been at Ole Miss. He's been out at Oklahoma. And I think I'm also missing a spot as well in there maybe somewhere, and has had tremendous success. And he's a big-time up-and-coming coach, and was when he was in Waco. He was just overshadowed by other up-and-coming coaches, as you mentioned, and he's going to be good. I have no doubt about that. I do wonder how much of what we saw last year, and we are well of Jeff Lebby because we also saw Baylor beat Ole Miss's ass in the Sugar Bowl a few months ago as well. So, he was the OC for that Ole Miss team. You do question, okay, is that more of his offense or Lane's? And that's fair, and that's the question that I think a lot of Oklahoma fans have. But, yeah, I mean, everybody in Waco is well aware of who he is, and I think everybody knows that he's a good coach. And from Kendall's point of view, it's just okay, is that just the answer to, okay, that's why they're not going to skip a beat and they're going to go on winning 10 games every year? No, there's a little bit more to it than just the OC's really good.
If you swapped logos, right? If you swapped logos on someone and said, if it wasn't Oklahoma, we just had Pitt on, let's use Pitt. If Pitt went through everything that Oklahoma went through in this offseason, would we be saying?
We nearly did.
And then, okay.
They lost a really good player.
And they're ranked in the top 50.
Anybody, that's not that kind of brand, you'd be like, okay.
Which is also why they don't question it, because, yes, you would have those questions about everybody, but Oklahoma's proven probably more than anody that they can go through those things and still be Oklahoma.
Yeah, but they haven't done it all together in 20-plus years. So, Bob Stoops came in and turned them back into the machine that Barry Switzer had built. I mean, they were a machine again. Maybe even in the modern era a little bit better.
Be careful.
Well, yeah, but
those Switzer teams were incredible.
But as far as in the '85 scholarship era and all these things that they hadn't really done, he built them back into that national power.
They were a disaster in the '90s.
Yeah, and so he built them back into the machine, and then when he decided to retire, he planned it out perfectly, and just transitioned to the brightest offensive upcoming mind in the country at the time, and they didn't really miss a beat.
Well, and you can't really get any better than they did with getting Brent Venables and the connections that he already had, and going a different route completely with a defensive-minded guy, and then having a graduate and a former player in Lebby who's an up-and-coming hot offensive coordinator. It fell very well for them ultimately, and the connections on staff, and they might not skip a beat. They might not. Kendall's point was, though, and this is what we were talking about, was just that it's entirely possible they do. And he's not saying they're not going to make a bowl game. He's saying it just might not be they just straight away change coaches and they win. They go 10-2 and they're playing, for a playoff spot. And that's not that crazy to say, but for some fans out there, apparently it is. And apparently he doesn't know what he's talking about, even though the reasons people are pointing to for why that will happen are the people that, in one case, is the person that was here that we covered in Waco for years. So Kendall is well aware. Yeah.
He was at Southeastern NAIA school, I think it is, back in Lakeland, Florida, when that first year, just to kind of get away but keep coaching. When we come back, Jed Drenning, sideline reporter, West Virginia. If we have Pittsburgh highlighted, you have to have West Virginia, right? With the backyard brawl just around the corner. He's next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, now available on DoorDash. And look, if you can't get by the fantastic location that they have there on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th behind the bank, you can get them on DoorDash. But if you, just so you know, you're getting the best selection of locally sourced whiskeys in the area, and that means TX, Devil's River, Balcones, Garrison Brothers, all those great Texas whiskeys, they have them all there. Best selection of craft beers anywhere. Right now, it's still summertime, beating down, but in a couple months, it'll be fall, and you'll have those Oktoberfest beers and the fall brews coming in. It might have some of those pumpkin brews coming in now, but, I'm not a psychopath, so I'll still be drinking summer beers until it is fall. And then you've got great customer service, a drive-through window that's really speedy, and a staff that just knows everything about everything when it comes to wine, beer, and spirits. And they always have great specials going on, great promotions. You can check them out on Instagram. They're fantastic. Great customer service, like I've said many, many times before. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street. Find out more on Instagram.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
We're going to hear from Jed Trenning, West Virginia sideline reporter. But Craig, Steve Sarkisian is meeting now with the media. We mentioned this off the top of the show with Isaiah Nayor.
Yes, Steve Sarkisian, Texas head coach, has confirmed to the media just a moment ago that Junior Angelau and Isaiah Nayor, offensive lineman Angelau, and also Nayor, the transfer wide receiver, are both going to miss the year. So that is now confirmed by Steve Sarkisian. Angelau, an ACL injury per Sarkisian, and I did not see the last update on Nayor exactly, but he is out, suffered season-ending injuries in their scrimmage. Also mentioned that Roshan Johnson is one of a couple of other players who are also going to miss a little bit time, but will eventually be back.
We're now joined by Jed Drenning, West Virginia sideline reporter, with us, Sick on 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Jed, thanks for your time. We're going to get to the Mountaineers and all that, but let us know. I was curious. I think I got a text from you about a new podcast with former Mountaineer great Owen Schmidt.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's start with this. Those injuries coming out of Texas or any other camp, Smokey, always hate to hear those this time of year. So hoping that these kids can stay as healthy as possible in a very dangerous game moving forward. But I hate to hear that kind of stuff coming out of anybody's camp. But, yeah, as for the podcast, teamed up with Owen Schmidt. We are part of the Believe Network. That's BLEAV Network. They reached out to me this past offseason in May, wanting West Virginia to be an addition to what they're doing. They have 400-plus shows around the country. We're on just about every audio platform you could hope for, all the ones that you like, all your favorites. We're on YouTube and video form. But teamed up with the Runaway Beer Truck. Owen and I have been working on this thing, getting it ready since probably June. And we launched our first episode last week. The next episode drops this week on Wednesday. You can follow us on Twitter at In the Gun Podcast. We both played in the shotgun for Coach Rodriguez, so we figured what better name than In the Gun. All right, so we got the In the Gun Podcast. We're having a lot of fun with it. Talk college football at large, talk Big 12, and obviously, but get very granular with West Virginia. And we're really excited, and it's off to a tremendous start. It's been very well received by West Virginia fans.
Jed, how much have you seen the changes? I mean, and how different? Because I know Neil Brown kind of runs it wide open and ran it wide open at other things. But between the offensive scheme of Neil Brown in particular and what Graham Harrell has brought.
Yeah, that's one of the things I spent the better part of the offseason studying, because these guys tend to branch out from that air raid tree, and they go a handful of different directions. And what's interesting is Neil has been more of a complimentary football guy when it comes to how he spun off. He was a different guy as a coordinator, right? When he was at Texas Tech, he made his name for himself as a very wide open, explosive coordinator, okay? Even to some extent at Kentucky, but he started to reel that in when he got in the SEC, run the football a little bit more. When he became a head coach at Troy, he started to understand, really became a master of the three phases of the game and how they're interlinked. So maybe it's not always best to be running 100 snaps a game offensively, high octane, and put your defense in bad situations. So still put the pedal down sometimes, but not as often. If it meant hurting his defense or putting his defense in jeopardy, sometimes the best thing an offense can do is get a couple first downs and punt, right? Neil has always been very adept at understanding the global consequences of what you do offensively. But he's still an air raid guy. What I get when I watch Graham Harrell, you see some of those old air raid staples, some of those pass concepts. Okay, he pushes the football vertically. But at the same time, Seth Luttrell, who he worked under at North Texas, as you guys know, Seth Luttrell's a guy that came from the air raid tree and kind of spun off in a direction where I really appreciated the value of running the football, much like Dana Holgerson took that turn 5-6 years ago. So Seth Luttrell did that, and I think that's had an influence on Graham Harrell as well. So what you're getting is a guy who understands and appreciates the value, not just in his time in coaching, but also look at the offensive minds, and he's been around at the next level in the CFL, in the NFL. So he understands the value of running the football, and he wants to have a balanced attack, but at the same time, you're going to see him push the football vertically and get aggressive.
So one of those guys we got used to seeing toting the rock for the Mountaineers was Letty Brown. He's gone now. What do you make of the West Virginia running back room?
It's a collective effort. I think we lack the bell cow. You know, Letty Browns don't grow on trees. There's a reason that he had the success that he did. But Tony Mathis is a guy, I've said this many times, he's only a redshirt sophomore, but he's the guy that's kind of providing the senior leadership in that room. He really came on strong as a compliment to Letty down the stretch for us last year and had a tremendous second half, to the 21 season for us. And I think the future is very bright for Tony Mathis. And he's a really easy kid to get behind. He's a hard worker. He does all the right things. He checks all the boxes. He's a complete football player. And I think there's a certain element of consistency that you can expect from him. Now, behind him, Justin Johnson. Again, he was a kid that was young a year ago, but got some reps down the stretch, gained some valuable experience, had a tremendous offseason, and we hope that he can build on that as well. Jalen Anderson's a kid who's young, incredibly talented, now didn't get the experience a year ago that Justin enjoyed, but we think that Jalen Anderson, as a physical presence in that run game, has a very bright future for West Virginia as well. Some of these kids will also be tossed out in the return game, the transition game, trying to find other ways to get their hands on the football and give them some opportunities. And an interesting name is C.J. Donaldson. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife. We knew coming out of high school that he was going to bring a lot of things to the table as a very unique skill set. He's kind of an H-back, kind of an offline tight end, but also kind of a running back. So he's going to, on some level, play into the mix as well. We're just not certain in what capacity or how early. So I think we got some possibilities in that room. It's just not as top-heavy as it probably was a year ago with Letty.
They're a school, a program, a football team that, like others in the Big 12, have also started cutting their teeth with what they do on the defensive side of the ball. Is that the strength for West Virginia this year?
I think we've established a standard. We really have. Jordan Leslie has done a tremendous job with a defensive staff, and Shadon Brown have done a really good job of being fundamentally sound, especially in an era, Smokey, where it's difficult to be that, okay? The golden age of solid tackling is behind us. I mean, the best way to get better at tackling is go more full contact. And we both know with what the data that we have long-term, the consequences of that, it's just not going to happen. So you have to find other ways to get there. And that's one of the things that West Virginia and the staff has done a tremendous job of doing. Over the course of the last 3 years, we're actually the highest graded tackling football team in the Big 12. If you look at the numbers on Pro Football Focus, and of course those guys are analyzing tape as well. So fundamentally, we've been very sound. Now, what we have working for us is we have some depth up front at the point of attack with some different body types who can do some different things. We have the versatility to kick into a 4 down, kick out to a 3 down, and give you some different looks. But what's going to be different this year? Of course, we lost a lot of leadership, a lot of veteran presence on that back end with the safeties gone. We lost those defensive backs. We lost a couple corners. We have Charles Woods back. We feel he's one of the better corners in the league. But what we do have is a bunch of transfers on that back end. So we have 3 kids. I think if you combine their career snaps together, it's over 1,000. Okay, we got a kid from North Dakota State, a kid from Murray State, a kid from James Madison. They played high-level football, just not at West Virginia, just not in the Big 12. And when you look at the body types that we have on that back end, with those kids and some of the newcomers that we have, we're far more, we feel, athletic than we've been in a long, long time. We're faster, we're longer. And what that does, it presents some opportunities for Jordan Leslie to get a little more creative in how he calls things. A year ago, we just weren't built to man up and throw numbers at you. We just weren't built to do that. We were a zone football team on the back end. And in games like Baylor, where Jeff Grimes really max protected through 3-man routes at us, that really exposed that shortcoming. Well, this year, at least we have the opportunity to try that. Maybe go man, maybe get a little more exotic with some packages in situations that dictate it, and throw some of those extra numbers at you and see how it goes. But again, we're untested as a unit, so we do have to find out how things are going to unfold.
How do you feel, in the last couple of years that the transfer portal has not been kind on the front end to West Virginia? They had a lot of guys leave, and then, you fill that in as it goes. And do you feel that they have built back that depth that they lost through those couple of years?
We have 33 new faces this year. And quite frankly, I think we have to accept that not just in West Virginia, but kind of college football in general, that's to some extent going to be the new normal. I mean, there's going to be extensive turnover each season, each off season, and you're going to have to prepare accordingly. So what you're going to have to do is stay on top of your scouting, understand what's available and what's out there, the possibility that you might lose, who knows? You might go from having 5 tight ends on Tuesday, couple injuries, couple portal kids, you have 1 or 2 on Saturday. Who really knows? So people have tried to draw an analogy between the portal and free agency in the NFL. I don't think that could be less true. Free agency is a very structured thing with contracts involved. There's commitments. You can plan for it. Okay, with the portal, you really can't. So you kind of have to be versatile enough and nimble enough to pivot on a dime and fill those gaps. And the other thing is, whatever system you're running, it better be a system that somebody can step in and learn pretty quickly, because that's going to be the nature of the beast moving forward. You're going to have to play some youth, you're going to have to play some transfers, and that's just how things are going to go. But I think the short answer to your question is, I do think we've addressed some of those needs, because I thought we got more than we lost if you look at it as a net gain.
Jed, was there anything that you feel like Neil Brown, whether it be self-reflection or just culturally within the program, wanted to tweak or felt the need to tweak this offseason?
I think that to some extent we needed to reinvent at least a little bit of what we were doing offensively. Okay. And Neil's the first guy that's going to look in the mirror and say, look, this isn't good enough to win the games we want to win. So I think we need a breath of fresh air. I think it needs reinvigorated. I think a guy like Graham Harrell has an opportunity to do that. But again, what Neil is going to bring to the table is that CEO mindset and that CEO big picture mentality. He understands the interconnectivity of the offense to the defense and the kicking game. Okay. And now he's in position to stand off and see it from a bigger picture standpoint, and maybe even more effective in that role. But I think that's probably what he looked at the most, is we're not explosive enough. We're not dynamic enough. We're not scoring enough to win some of these games that we need to win the challenge for this league. So I think that's why we did what we did.
The depth chart, as far as where West Virginia, where they are, you mentioned a lot of what they have, a lot of the new coming talent or incoming transfers. Where are they when it comes to the depth?
It depends what position you're looking at. I think along the offensive line, we're pretty sturdy. You want to push towards 7 or 8 that you're comfortable with. I think that's kind of where we're at. I think at wideout, irrespective of what we may have lost, we might have lost some flashy names, but I think by and large, we have enough coming back in addition to what we had coming in with some of those new faces. I think we have some depth there. It's going to be interesting to see what plays out on the back end, because we've got some interchangeable pieces, some kids with a lot of versatility. So, for instance, in Marcus Floyd, you have a guy that for the better part of his time at Murray State was a nickel and corner, but now he's going to be a safety for us. But in a pinch, he can still drop down and be a nickel and a corner. You got a guy like David Smoak. We have him at that spear position, was that glorified Sam linebacker to the field. I think he has some versatility. So when you look at the body types that we have on the back end, I can't speak with perfect clarity in terms of the depth question quite yet, because I do want to see how things play out in terms of these kids being able to play multiple positions like I think they can. Maybe at inside backer, okay, because we're kind of untested there. We have 2 transfers, one JC kid and another kid from Miami, 2 transfers there that are repping it out. So maybe there. You could always use 1 or 2 more body types in that backer room. But I think overall, especially when you look at the point of attack, where all things start right there in the trenches on the offensive side, on the defensive side, I think we're happy with the number of bodies we have there. So this time of year, it's difficult to answer that. But again, when you look in the quarterback room, we had a 5-star transfer come in addition to 3 kids that we were pretty happy with in the spring that were battling it out. I can't say enough about what it says for those kids that they were willing to stick it out and compete despite the fact that JT Daniels committed after spring ball. So, we got 4 of those kids, and they all bring something different to the table. So that's an interesting dynamic as well.
What were your thoughts when you saw the news earlier today? Jarrett Dagey, who went to Western Kentucky, up and down at West Virginia, and now no longer even a part of the roster there, or at least he's entered the transfer portal.
Yeah, I had seen something about a week ago that he was being challenged for that job by that kid from West Florida, another transfer. All I can say is I wish the absolute best for Jarrett Dagey. He was in a difficult situation. There were some deficiencies around him at West Virginia offensively. Sometimes it was too much to try and overcome. He's not necessarily an it factor quarterback, but he's an above average quarterback. But he's not a guy that can take a game over and mask some of the deficiencies that you might have, especially if you're in a system that's putting your quarterback in a lot of second and third and longs. And that's kind of what we were in. But Jarrett Dagey is a high character kid from a great family. Again, does all the right things. He's a yes or no sir kind of guy. I really can't say enough good things about Jarrett Dagey, and I hope, however this plays out, that he lands on his feet, because he certainly deserves it.
The backyard brawl is back after the delay of what has been over a decade, and I know that the intensity, the rivalry, 100-plus years or so. Excited to see that thing reunited?
that might be an understatement. It's just 74 odd miles from one stadium to the other. The staffs cross paths in recruiting circles. A lot of people know, a lot of West Virginians know Pennsylvanians. From a work standpoint, proximity does breed contempt. There is merit to that. But we are terribly excited about it. The funny thing is, for the first time in the Narduzzi era, Pitt has actually sold out their season tickets, and they're boasting about that. But the funny thing is, I kind of sort of think that it has something to do with their playing West Virginia and Tennessee and Pittsburgh, and the season ticket was cheaper than the game ticket. Let's see how that plays out, right? There's an old saying. Now, of course, the name of the stadium's a new one. But it's no longer Heinz Field. It's now Acrisure. The old saying was 4 teams could sell out Heinz Field. The Steelers, Penn State, Notre Dame, and West Virginia. Pitt's not on that list, right? But all that being said, we have a lot of fun with it. They are a very good football team. A very good football team. Defensively, as nasty as they come, it's exactly what Pat Narduzzi wants and what he's built. Offensively, you might have lost some of the flash with the first-round quarterback and Jordan Madison and the coordinator, but they're going to bring a very physical nature on that side as well with Cignetti and the entire line back. They are an exceptional football team, and it is about as tall a task as you could ask for coming straight out of the gate. Second year in a row, West Virginia opens on the road at a P5. Only 3 teams in the country can say that.
No, you did. That probably doesn't happen enough, and that's another story. We did have Jerry DePaula today on Pitt with a lot of the strengths that they have back as well. Chet, thank you, buddy. Always great to go ahead and say again what you and Owen Schmidt, where people can find that on YouTube.
Sure, appreciate it, Smokey. It's In the Gun Podcast. You can search on YouTube for In the Gun Football Podcast. But again, you can look for alerts on Twitter at In the Gun Podcast, and we're having a ton of fun with it. So be sure to follow us on Twitter, search us out on YouTube, or on whatever platforms you like to listen to. But if you go to Believe.com, BLEAV.com, it's spelled strange, Believe. You can look it up there too, In the Gun, and you'll find it. But it's available just about anywhere. We're having a ton of fun with it.
Always enjoy your knowledge and insight. Chet Drenning, sideline reporter at the Signal Caller, and as he mentioned, the podcast as well with former West Virginia star Owen Schmidt. Thanks for his time. Again, we have Pitt, we have West Virginia. Now, we're not going to always match that up.
We also had Kentucky. Look, that's a border war right there. That's right. The Hatfields-McCoy.
Absolutely, as well. Now, at 5:30 today, we'll hear from David Hellman. Cowboys coming off the preseason game with Denver and a couple of NFL questions. I want to do this, though, if we could. Do you have the UCLA writer tweet that I sent to you, Garrett, from Ben Bolts? This has nothing to do with realignment, nothing like that. But Ben Bolts, when we've discussed sometimes the interest in L.A., and they do, UCLA and USC get to be, that's their market. This really surprised me. Now, there might have been some years back in the day, Paul, when you first were covering Baylor in the late 2007, 8, 9, whatever.
There
were 2 reporters now the Rams were playing, I think they were playing the Chargers maybe during this time. I'm not sure. But that really kind of like blew my mind that's 2 reporters at a Division I college football practice.
I've definitely just been at Baylor practices with John Werner and Jerry Hill, at more than one occasion. So, I mean, it's not normal, but I've definitely had that happen. But, I mean, I don't think that's what he's talking about, obviously. So, if you want to poke fun at the lack of care on the West Coast in some cases about college football, I mean, there's a prime example right there. And I don't know how you change that or recreate that or make that matter more than it has. I clearly doesn't matter that much to the Big Ten because they're getting what they want out of it, which is that market. I don't think they're as worried about, UCLA packing the stands. I'm sure at some point that'll be more of a worry. But, I mean, it'd be one thing if that was L.A. as in Louisiana, but there's no way even anywhere in Louisiana they'd have only 2 people at a practice. So that's crazy.
And clearly it's kind of telling to him that that's going on there, given everything that's happened, which is why he tweeted he's one of the beat writers who covers them. There's been times where I've been at Baylor practice. Well, of course, you want to talk early on. The first time I ever went out to a Baylor practice, I was doing the morning show, and I called Nick Jost and asked if I could interview Jason Smith, and he said, come out to practice. And, they were practicing then next to Floyd Casey Stadium. And so I went out there, at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and when they were wrapping up. I think it was about 4 o'clock, and it was me and Jerry and John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's from Ben Bolch, and I think he was even surprised by it. Now, we don't have a lot of time, but there's the bizarre story about the youth football game in Lancaster, Texas, just south of Dallas, where there was video, and I actually found a YouTube channel where a guy was almost breaking this down, like game film, where there was a youth football game, and a fight broke out between coaches and parents and whatever else, and eventually a coach was shot to death. And Aqib Talib's name was in this because he was a part of at least the game. He was a coach. There's video of what allegedly is Aqib Talib throwing a metal chair.
No, he's involved in it because he was there, and it's his brother who did the shooting.
Okay. I know that. I'm trying, but his name was attached to this initially as if it was him, but it's his brother, and his brother turned himself into authorities. It's just, what in the God's name happened here? But it did. And a guy who used to be a running back at the University of North Texas is gone because of a youth football game brawl that ended in a shooting. Made no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, it was in Lancaster, and there was a fight that broke out because apparently one side was upset over, I guess, the way the game had ended or a call that wasn't or wasn't made. It really doesn't matter. I think Aqib Talib's brother, I believe Yaqub is his name, is an absolute piece of trash based on what's been reported so far. Do you realize that those guys and gals who are out there coaching these youth teams, I mean, yes, there are far too many of them, and clearly in this case, reliving their own glory years, but they're supposed to be out there to help these young kids learn life lessons. Maybe one day it turns into them becoming an NFL player and things like that, but that's so far down the road. And I just couldn't help but, like, all the things that you can talk about with this story. I mean, I know some people are going to use it for a variety of different reasons, whether it's like gun control or, you know, whatever thing they want to make this about. But to me, the saddest thing about this is not only that just somebody lost their life, and we've come to find out that his young son actually saw daddy get shot at his football practice or game and watched him die, is that a whole team of young men saw that. So you're out there as a grown-ass adult, out there as an observer or an assistant coach or whatever you're out there for. Why do you have an effing gun to begin with? I mean, the fact that you feel the need to even have that is ridiculous at a youth football practice. I mean, my gosh, that says a lot without saying anything. But you just scarred the F out of an entire group of young men that you're supposed to be propping up and boosting up and building up to be that next generation, and you just murdered a person in front of their very effing eyes, dude. You just cold-blooded killed somebody in front of these little kids and left them with that image, left them with that memory, left one of them with his daddy dying in front of him over a effing football game? Are you kidding me, man?
That's why
I don't care what the argument was over, and it damn sure better have been about something off the field that actually has some level of importance to it, like something like, I don't know, something personal. Like, because at least that would make some sense. Because if it's over just a disagreement at the end of a youth football game, then that is just, that I don't even know what words to use to describe the idiocy, the indecency, the stupidity, and just the ugliness that it takes for something like that to unfold. That story pisses me off, man, to no end.
I can't tell.
And I, know that there are stories every single day that we could talk about as, whataboutism, everything. But that story, and scrolling through all the other nightmares and madness that's going on, that just struck a chord with me. A young boy just playing football, just watched his dad die over an argument. These are the adults setting the examples. These are the people that these young men are supposed to look up to and model themselves after. Like, I can't even imagine where somebody's head goes.
We see more and more and more fights in stands, maybe because everybody has a cell phone. We see more and more of just what in the hell is going on than ever before, maybe because of social media. But that right there, I watched the video. It was, Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, never was. And Paul, did you watch?
I've seen it, yeah.
And next thing you know, there's a fight, okay? And then there's a chair being thrown, allegedly by Aqib Talib, who just last year was a part of a Super Bowl. right? Closed out.
Just got hired by Amazon.
Yeah.
And
to be a broadcaster for their.
He was initially, the name was attached to it because of but his brother again turned himself in. I don't see how there could ever be an excuse of anything that you were talking about. You made yourself very clear. It's crazy that, but you see more and more fights now. It's just games.
Grow up.
Yeah,
you are grown-ups. Yeah. You are grown-ups. Yeah. This is not that important. It is Little League football, Little League baseball, basketball. This is not you trying to go and live out your dreams. This is you as a freaking adult, being a parent, being a mentor, being a friend, being what you need to be for these young people. Especially, I mean, we're not even talking about like high school age kids. We're talking about little kids that are playing this game. Hey, what's your best memory, worst memory from football? Oh, watching my coach die in front of me after some idiot on the opposing staff decided to shoot him in the middle of a skirmish. Like, what the hell you're adults. God, this makes me angry. And there's so many things I feel like I want to say that I don't know quite how to even put into words of how angry this makes me, because it's just stupidity and it's nonsense and it's senseless. And it just, I think, makes me more mad than anything that, you would think that one of these other stories that have happened over time, over the years, would make a difference. And you would think that maybe if those hadn't, then maybe something like this would, but I know it won't. Because everybody's going to continue being selfish and all these other bad traits that leads to bad behavior and in situations like what happened over the weekend. But, man, you just scarred two teams, not to mention whoever else was observing, whatever other, people might have been, cheerleaders or whoever. You just scarred people. Over what? Over a fight over a freaking youth football game? How can you justify that? That's insane, man.
It wasn't over a youth football game. It was over egos and just plain stupidity.
You deserve to rot. Yeah. I don't care. You deserve to rot. Especially if there's nothing else. Here's the thing. I better clarify myself. At least if there was something that came out, like him and this dude had been beefing for like 30 years and one of them did something horrific, and you could at least go, okay, there was like a seed planted somewhere. Mm-hmm. Doesn't justify it, doesn't make it right, but at least there was a seed there. If there's not that story and this was just two dudes at a youth football game and one got angry and one can't actually handle himself and feels he's got to go straight for the gun and shoot a guy and kill him in front of his family, his sons, friends, everything else, that's pathetic. That's not gangster. That's not being hard. That's being an idiot. That's being stupid. That's being selfish. That's being egotistical. And it's being a moron. I hope you rot. You deserve to. You deserve worse than that, but that's the least that they can do for you.
When we come back, David Hellman, NFL weekend, the first full weekend of the preseason. I've got a question about one of the most, I hate the rule when it comes to illegal contact. I think it's ridiculous what the actual result is. We'll get into that, plus the Cowboys in a sloppy game against Denver. What does it actually mean, if anything? Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco, where they have on their lot right now cars that, of course, are helping them celebrate throughout what is called the summer event as we continue through that in August. A lineup of 2022 models, the Grand Cherokee, the Grand Cherokee L, the Renegade Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. Vehicles bringing power, style, smooth ride you expect from a Jeep. And the Grand Cherokee L, even now, more room, extended seating with the third row. You can come by and see them at Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Ask for one of the client managers. They'll give you, if you want to test drive, and give you all the dealer discounts, what is available right now. Plus, of course, you could always go to the reliable Ram truck, back-to-back Motor Trend Truck of the Year. 2022 Ram trucks, durable, functional, and stylish. Legendary award-winning trucks at Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com. Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. And you're about to approach this time of the year where you have the holidays, special gifts. It's not that you don't have that every single day. What are some of the things you have coming up?
We kind of call ourselves the wedding ring store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves, probably 9 out of 10 every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
Paul sent me a text Saturday evening. It was like 8:30. I really was bunkered down doing a hell of a lot of tedious paperwork and prep work and a lot of things for high school football. And he said, hey, same thing, Cowboys, penalties. I honestly had not yet started watching, but I was going to, and I did. And sure enough, like the third play later, there's a holding call. And that's been a big discussion. David Hellman, FoxSports.com, joins us and maybe overshadowed most anything else. David, it's a preseason game, but it's a team that struggled with penalties last year. Is there any correlation?
It's hard to say that there's correlation because the guys that played in that game are not the guys that are going to play for the Cowboys this year, at least not most of them. I mean, the Cowboys sat 18 or 20 of their key role players. But you as a Cowboys fan, Cowboys media, Cowboys fans, you're absolutely entitled to be put off by that. I mean, it was supposed to be a point of emphasis all off season. It's been beaten to death, and Mike McCarthy is very obviously tired of talking about it. He makes that clear every time it comes up. And at some point, it's like, okay, we'll do something about it, man. 17 was the total for the night, which is almost triple the league average for the first week of the preseason. So Everybody else is sitting their starters. Everybody else is playing their first preseason game, and you tripled their number. So, yeah, it's awful. I mean, do I think that is an indicator of how the season's going to go? Not necessarily, because, again, a lot more football to play with much better players than most of what we saw on Saturday. But you're well within your right to find it disconcerting and to say, hey, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to me is, it just appears you can make the argument that the coaching staff hasn't done anything about it yet.
Like I said, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, yeah, and they did all. It was all types. I mean, honestly, you can say whatever you want about the holdings. Like, to some degree, I'm just like, well, yeah. I mean, Tyler Smith is playing his first game. Like, guys have got to learn technique. Like, that doesn't even bother me. But like, jumping offside on a missed field goal, unnecessary roughness after the play, pulling a guy off of a pile, that coming from a guy who's been in the league for 6 or 7 years at this point. There were just a lot of really stupid penalties. A false start on 4th and inches. They were going for it on 4th and inches, and they get a false start that backs up to 4th and 5. I mean, that shouldn't happen beyond like high school football. In Texas, that shouldn't even happen in high school football. So, yeah, that's the stuff that bothers you, where it's like, man, is this a point of emphasis at all? You say it is, but it sure doesn't look like it is.
David, I saw you posted an updated 53-man roster after seeing this weekend's action. Was that a pretty easy task? Was there any problems or any, that you bogged down on those last couple spots?
Honestly, I'll tell you why it's easy. It's because the Cowboys are really good at working the system, and that's what I figured out. What I mean by that is there's rules that you can bend to get things the way you want it. Just as if you're a vested veteran, if you've been in the league for 3-4+ years, you can be cut and re-signed at the team's discretion. Whereas younger players, first, second year players, guys that just got drafted, they're subject to a waiver wire. If you cut them, then every other team in the league has a chance to claim them before you can sign them back. So I bring all this up to say there's about 4 or 5 guys on the roster that the Cowboys can easily cut and just tell them to hang out at their apartment for a day and they'll bring them back. And so I was going through it and I was like, yeah, that's probably going to happen a handful of times in 2 weeks if I had to guess. So I think that reduces the stress a little bit. But yeah, I mean, if you look at defensive line and defensive backs specifically, they're real heavy there. I mean, you tend to think a team's probably going to keep 10 of each. And I challenge you to get it down to 10 at both positions. I mean, you can do it, but it gets tricky. So I think those are the two spots where it's hardest to trim the fat.
I understand. Go ahead, Paul.
Do you think that they feel that a swing tackle is going to magically appear out of the air?
I mean, I just hope that they are doing more homework on it than I think they are. Because I mean, yeah, it looks rough. And I tweeted on Saturday night. I mean, there are veteran tackles sitting out there, and that's the beauty of playing a position like tackle. I mean, there's 33, 34, 35-year-old guys like Eric Fisher's still available. Jason Peters, the longtime Eagles tackle, is still sitting out there. Darrell Williams, who was a starter for the Bills, you see it pretty much every year where there's a guy sitting out there who maybe doesn't want to go through the rigors of camp, but when somebody calls him and offers him $1, $2, $3 million at the end of the preseason, he suits up. And man, I don't know anything, but I really hope the Cowboys have something like that in mind because based on everything we've seen from their backup tackles, if they think they're in good shape, they are kidding themselves.
I know that preseason football can be looked by most as just it's a waste of time, whatever else. But because of the lack of wide receivers, as far as those who you know about, is there any temptation whatsoever to make sure that they play more game time, even with the fact you want to wrap Dak Prescott in bubble wrap?
No, not me. I mean, I'm the king of. I mean, I don't think preseason's a waste of time. I think preseason is for evaluating young players, the guys on the back end of your depth chart. I think all of those receivers need to be playing a lot of snaps. I mean, somebody's got to differentiate themselves. Somebody's got to step up and say, you don't need to make a waiver claim on the veteran, on the other guy that gets cut, or you don't need to make a trade for a more established player. That's on them. I am not putting Dak Prescott at unnecessary risk so that he can work on his timing with nobody receivers. I mean, that's what practice is for. No. It's not an ideal situation, but that's what the Cowboys signed up for by going into camp so thin at the position. So I think you gotta sleep in the bed that you made. Play the receivers all you want, but I'm not risking Dak's health because of that.
Mike McCarthy said this a couple weeks ago that he does think that he kind of let it slip that the roster is made more defensive heavy by design, and that would be the first time in a long time. Will this defense be good enough to overcome the depth problems that they have on offense?
It better be. I guess maybe that doesn't qualify as a real answer, but it has to be. It has to. I mean, I just don't see this offense being a revolutionary sort of situation. I mean, they were number one in the league last year, and they still sputtered and weren't good enough in the games that really mattered, including the playoffs. They're not going to be better than they were last year. I mean, that would qualify as an all-time shock. You're looking at the defense. I mean, it's weird to say. It's never been this way in the 10 years I've covered the team. This has never been a team that was consistently carried by its defense. And I don't think they need to be carried by their defense, but I don't think the defense is going to be able to afford very many no-shows. You go back to Thanksgiving last year, defensive issues were a big part of the reason why they lost to the Raiders that day. They can't afford games like that and expect to win as many games as they did last year. The takeaways, improving the run defense, keeping the scoring down. I think there's a lot riding on this defense if they're going to be as good or somehow better than they were last year.
David, how often can we expect to see you on set with Colin Cowherd?
I wish I had an answer for you. It's funny, my contract just stipulates that they can call me whenever they want. And they have, which is really cool. I appreciate it. It's a cool opportunity. But it's kind of funny, I typically just get an email or a text when somebody wants me, and I say, yeah, all right, that sounds good. So, maybe it'll be a lot. Maybe that'll be a one-time thing. I really don't know. It adds an element of fun to my job because I never really know what I'm going to be asked to do when I wake up on any given day. So, pretty cool.
When do you actually get to go back to your house?
My flight home is Sunday after the Chargers game. So it'll have been 27 days, I think, by the time I finally get on that airplane, and I'm very ready for it.
There's a penalty that I understand what it can do to someone trying to be on a pass route. But the illegal contact penalty, to me, which is now being, every year there's one that to me, they've over-adjusted to this thing. And the other thing is, David, really, with all due respect, it's a very cheap foul. I get it. It can reroute somebody, but should it be an automatic first down?
No, I mean, I get it. I mean, I like big plays and touchdowns as much as anybody. I don't think football would be nearly, for all the people that say they like defense, the game wouldn't be nearly as popular if not for offense. It just wouldn't be. That's what we're really all here for. But even having said that, I mean, they just continue to skew the game more and more in favor of offense. I think they a lot years ago with how hard it is. I mean, it's impossible to play defense in the upper levels of football anymore. But I don't think there's any going back. Again, fantasy football, gambling, touchdowns, NFL red zone, people want constant stimulation and constant excitement. And you're not going to get that by giving the defense the power back. So it is what it is. Sports evolve over time, and that's that's the trend that we're probably going to continue to be on for the foreseeable future.
David, what is your favorite Miles Brennan memory as his LSU career comes to a close?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have one, I guess, and that's, I mean, I feel terrible for Miles. I mean, at the end of the day, it's been college football, and that type of stuff happens. I mean, you gotta start the better player, but you know, Miles was in line to be the starter when Burrow transferred there, so he had to take a back seat for 2 years, and then he was in line he was the starter for like 3 games, and then he tore his abdominal, so then he had to wait, and then he broke his arm last summer. I mean, the guy was supposed to have been the starter like 5 different times, and he played 3 games in an LSU uniform, or, you know, at least attempted a pass or whatever. So I feel terrible for him that he had so much anticipation of being the guy, and it didn't really work out for him. But yeah, I mean, my lasting memory of him is probably going to be he played out of his mind, threw for like 350 yards against Missouri back in 2020, played a phenomenal game, and they lost to Mizzou because their defense was that atrocious. And I just remember thinking, like, this is where we are. You know, we're 2 games removed from a national title, and we can't beat freaking Mizzou because we can't stop our nosebleed. Like, this sucks. So yeah, sorry, Miles. Sorry, it didn't work out better. Wish you the best of luck.
It was great that you brought that up, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I wasn't trying to kick dirt on it. I mean,
yeah, you were.
I was just
no. Hey, it's okay. I mean, hey, you know, we got Doug Nussmeier's kid Garrett is in the fold. They got Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. I feel good about the quarterback position at LSU. I just, you know, it would have been nice to see Miles get his shine, I guess. But like I said, life's not always fair.
Thank you, David. As always, David Hellman, FoxSports.com, covers the Cowboys and does it incredibly well. Ben Mora, no, Paul, kick more dirt to him.
No, I wasn't. I was asking. I mean, I asked it, you know, with a little jab in there, I guess, but, you know.
No, I just wait for him to vent. We needed David to be able to have a chance to vent as well. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5. I want to say hi to Lewis. I'm not sure whether or not Lewis is watching us today. He is the guy that when you walk in the door at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness that greets you in the morning. He's going to have some sort of a surgery earlier, sometime maybe in the next day or 2. He watches us religiously, and I wanted to say, Lewis, good luck with whatever you have in front of you.
Yeah, well, that's terrible timing for me now to bring up something unrelated.
No, it's okay.
I would like to talk about Chris Woodward and the Rangers before we haven't even mentioned it, that he was fired today. And I know that this is not necessarily a baseball show, but I was at the Rangers game on Friday night, and Paul's a giant baseball fan, and we are here in Texas, and I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm not surprised.
I don't think he was the right guy for it. I don't think it's his fault. I mean, over the long haul, but they're trying to, you know, shoot some adrenaline into that franchise, and they did so with Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, although Marcus Semien's first 2 months were abysmal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's turned it around a little bit, and Seager's been really good. They've got some things to build around. Jonah Heim's really fun. So they've got some pieces.
What's the kid from Tech? Young?
Yeah, Josh Young.
I saw where
Bubba Thompson's up now. That's a high draft pick. So they've got some young talent in there. I just think he's not the right guy at the right time for them. I lean back towards, given that they're young players and there's a lot of young guys and they need to learn how to maybe be pros a little bit across that lineup. There's a manager you used to have that had a lot of success for you that I wouldn't mind seeing come back.
Who is really now?
And Ron Washington.
Is he good with younger players? Or is he, because baseball managers seem to be, and I love Ron Washington. I love the guy. But there are managers who are good with youth, and there's some that just don't want to deal with youth.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ron Washington's good with everybody.
Yeah,
I think that was his thing.
Well, it's not even so much like I mean, yeah, you've got youth and all that, but you don't have to necessarily win with that youth. I mean, they didn't get to, you know, where they were near the mountaintop originally by just the farm system. I mean, that was a few transactions aided that as well, but I mean, there's veterans on the roster right now, like Semien that you just mentioned, like their entire free agency. Seager, yes, et cetera, that, you know, they're veteran players. So
what I think Wash was good with, because he came and took over for Buck Showalter, and like nobody's going to confuse Chris Woodward for Buck Showalter. And Buck's having success in Baltimore right now. Buck's success is he in Baltimore? New York.
Buck Showalter?
Buck Showalter? Right now he's with the Mets?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was with
New
Baltimore.
York, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Buck's having success right now. It'll be short-lived, I promise you, because people get tired of Buck. What Ron did that was so good was he brought out the true leader in Michael Young, who was able to get the most out of Ian Kinsler, who just got inducted into the Rangers Hall of Fame because he got Michael Young to that spot. And then you throw in Adrian Beltre into that, and they really turned it into something. But he got the most out of Michael Young and was able to move Michael Young all around the infield for the betterment of the team, which didn't happen all that often. It doesn't happen all that often. So Ron Washington, I think with Corey Seager, Mario Simeon on the team, I think that'd be good. Although bring in some young blood, some new blood, somebody different. I don't know, but that's what they tried to do with Chris Woodward. It didn't work out. So.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong Rangers fan, even before they moved to Texas in 1972. They were at least showing signs as they closed out, I think it was the month of May or June, where maybe they were going to be able to tread water around 500. I expected them to eventually drown, and my God, they not only eventually drowned, they've drowned. And, I saw Chuck Cooperstein, who I admire the hell out of his sports knowledge, saying that he thought that Woodward's biggest fault was, or one of his biggest faults was, he made the game too hard on a team that was already not at a level where they could just kind of, put it in cruise control. And whatever he meant by that, I may even ask him and get him on, but he made the game too hard. Baseball shouldn't be hard. Not that there aren't tough parts of the game, but it seemed like he was, like they just made the game too hard. Maybe it's decisions, whatever he did, I don't know. But, yep, Chris Woodward is out as Rangers manager. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. I've given you a couple of examples in the last few weeks, thanks to Dr. Rob Maxey and Ideal MRI, of a couple of women who have saved themselves hundreds, and in fact, one of them over $1,000 with their MRI because they contacted Ideal MRI. One that was going to have to use an MRI at a hospital, that's what she was told. It's going to cost her $1,600. Insurance deductible was crazy high so that her monthly payments would be better and more manageable. And she contacted Ideal MRI, and she ended up not only under $497, which is the highest you'll pay for an MRI at Ideal MRI, she ended up getting her MRI for like under $300 after they were able to use her insurance deductible. Think about that. And the other story about someone that was told that they had to go and get their MRI somewhere else, and they contacted Ideal MRI because her insurance was not going to help her much. Not that it's the insurance fault because of the deductible. And she ended up getting an MRI that was going to be $1,400 for $497. State-of-the-art technology MRI machine, techs and specialists that are amazing. They will have world-class people that read the MRI, send it to your doctor so they'll have it in a portal. They can look at it immediately, and you can have the peace of mind of whatever is hurting you, and also financially so much better off at idealmri.com.
This month, Alan Samuels is having the Make This the Summer event on the new 2022 Ram trucks. Designed to be durable, functional, and stylish, these legendary award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel. Luxurious leather-trimmed seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options that you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at AlanSamuelsDCJ.com. Alan Samuels in Waco, the place to shop for Ram trucks.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm, welcome home.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet. And, of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 AP poll observations. And these are going to go through. We had people I thought were overrated, underrated, but these are just kind of observations. What is your guys' opinion on? Number 5, lots of love for A&M, Michigan, and Notre Dame across both of them. And look, Notre Dame is a good team, but they've got a new coach. They're going to have a new quarterback. Fifth, to me, just feels a little high to them. A&M, we've been through it a lot. Like, don't be 8-4 at the end of the year, and we can talk about being top 10. Need to take that step. And Michigan has to do it consecutive years. Like, these are all teams kind of not in the same boat, but I have similar questions for all three of them in that, can you really do it? And this is not about the long term for A&M and Notre Dame and Michigan, but this is about right now. That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, no, those are three. There you go. Yeah.
Michigan, yes, you beat Ohio State last year. Yes, you won the Big Ten. Yes, you're in the playoff, but do it again. Do it again. And Ohio State is loaded for bear again, and it's going to be a tough team to beat. And they might have fixed the problem where you can't gash them in the run game.
They did physically beat them.
Mauled them.
Yeah, in a kind of a bloodletting out of years and years of frustration.
Yeah, but again, let's just see it finish out that way. New Big 12 teams might be a little low to me. Those three teams at 23, 24, and 25. I think that they're a little low. I think they could be a little bit higher. I think those three have proven more than, say, a Miami, who I think deserves to be ranked. They could be up in that range. You know, I would put Miami maybe down in the 20s. Just let them prove it under Mario Cristobal.
Brigham Young was 25th. They were unranked in the coaches poll.
Yeah. Houston, I think, should be a lot higher. Cincinnati.
Brigham Young could jump very
Cincinnati
high.
Might be in the right spot.
Off the top if they win at home against Baylor in week 2.
Yeah.
They could jump right into it. Yeah.
There's a case to be made. I mean, I really don't have much of an issue with, the fact that they're, I guess, low. I can understand Cincinnati. There's a case to be made for why they're low. They lost a lot off their team last year. U of H and BYU, I just don't think many people know about them. And I think in the case of BYU, there might be a few people waiting to see them at least get through that first stretch of their schedule before they start trying to get too high on the Cougars. I mean, if they beat Baylor, they will skyrocket into the top of the rankings or close to the top of the rankings. I just think U of H is under the radar. I think that if you don't have them in your top 25, that's a mistake. That would be my favorite to win the American this year, outside of Cincinnati, obviously. And I think they're going to be really good with Holgorsen. Not many people will leave a Big 12 job for a non-Power 5 job, but you see now, you're starting to see kind of why he did it. And that's not a knock on West Virginia. It's just it was time to go separate ways, and he found a unique opportunity at U of H where he knew he could thrive. And, next year they're going to be in the Big 12. And I think this is going to be a year for them to really have a good team. Let them get underrated at, the voters' own risk.
Yeah. Number 3, Wake Forest, 3 spots lower in this poll than they were in the AP. I don't know how much that has to do with Sam Hartman. I think most of these votes are probably already in and done but by the time that news broke. But Wake Forest is a team that I think had this been in the regular season might not been in the poll because we don't know what they're going to be at quarterback and how they're going to be with a defense that wasn't good last year and won games with Sam Hartman in that offense.
I'm going to text Ralph Russo, who you guys had on Thursday, about when most of the ballots were turned in on Wake Forest. Craig, anything on Wake Forest?
No, not really. I mean, they're 3 spots lower, so it is what it is. Yeah. I'm not going to get that in depth on the polls to have a breakdown to Paul's note on that. If they are 3 spots lower, that's just coincidence. If they didn't know the news about Sam Hartman, and if they did know the news, then they thought that only moves them 3 spots, and that would be interesting. But it's negligible at best.
Yeah, I mean, and I just wonder if they had that news or when most of the polls come in, and that's why.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if they knew about that news and they're like, oh, they're only 3 spots lower, losing their starting quarterback. Well, then hell, that says a lot about Wake Forest. I'm not going that far right now, but apparently some people would. So that would be interesting to know.
Yeah. Number 2. Utah's getting respect, but are they too low? I think they are. I would put Utah at 5. I really would. I think that they.
You know what? Somebody brought this up though, Paul, and we like to look at the different levels or angles or just. They lost 4 games last year. Now Ohio State was an amazing game. Mm-hmm. They lost a game early when Charlie Brewer was the starter. There's a reason they lost game 2 because they were in such a hole they couldn't come back. Cam Rising tried to. So there's 3, but they lost a game to Oregon State, who was a 7-6 team. Is that a game that people gloss over? And it's a conference game. It's a conference game, so I get it. But that one seems to be a wart there.
Yeah, it does. I just think that Cam Rising with a full offseason of being the starter.
They did win 6 or 7 in a row until Ohio State beat them, so they were hot.
Yeah. With full offseason preparing as the starter, full offseason that team being the Pac-12 champs, all that experience coming back to them will be better off. That I don't think they lose games like the Oregon State game this year.
And I love the way they play.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Kyle Whittingham, he's a coach in his 60s. Not to say that I think he's going to retire. There's some scuttlebutt around that. I think he's kind of, pedal to the floor here.
They won 9 of their last 10 before losing an incredible game that we watched while we were down in the bowels eating dinner at the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, they were hot.
Yeah.
Beat Oregon 38-7. And again 38-10.
Yeah. And number 1, BYU in the poll, Texas out of the poll. This makes much more sense in the coaches poll to me because BYU has kind of shown over the last couple of years that this is a team that should be in the poll as where Texas has not yet. And we know way more about BYU than we do about Texas, but Texas somehow got to the 18th in the other poll.
I think what happens, and I don't vote in the AP Top 25 poll, but I think what happens sometimes is the first 5, 6, 8, 10, sometimes there's debate, but you kind of, and then you get down to about 17, you start looking around, okay, who should be in there, and then you start looking at logos.
Well, I think part of the problem is that they expect people to know 25 teams well enough and then a bunch of others well enough to know exactly what that order would look like. I listen to national guys all the time. I could tell immediately they don't know how to go much deeper past the surface level. I mean, I'd say this, we can be knowledgeable about a lot of teams, but not everybody's super knowledgeable about a ton of teams. Not even the guys who you think like Herb Street, for example, is somebody. Do you know how much studying he does? like in the week leading up to a game. That's not just like him riffing. I mean, I'm sure some of it is, but he knows like, hey, Kirk, you got a segment on SportsCenter. We're going to talk about Utah. We're going to talk Arizona State. We're going to talk Washington State. So anything he doesn't know, he can like sharpen his irons a little bit. I just think it's really hard unless you're like somebody who's doing a game every week or you're involved to know super in depth the storylines beyond the conference you cover. It's just hard to do. It's hard to keep up with all of it. So I think that's what you see a lot. And the fact that, there's either just a lack of knowledge, but also the lack of knowledge that everybody has is that nobody's played a game yet.
Yeah.
So if you want to tell me that Texas is the number team in the country, you can make a case for that. That's fine if you feel that way. I feel differently. But it's a preseason poll. That's why, you can't put a whole ton of stock into it because, some are going to be way off. Some are going to be right on point. The ones that are right on point are the easy ones that are 1 through 4. It's just a matter of getting the order right. But even then, you're not going to be far off. But beyond that, I mean, it's a total crapshoot. Everybody's 0-0 right now.
You don't know. I mean, you really, really, really don't know. And for example, Arlo 220. You honestly think Houston will beat Texas Tech September 10th? Seriously?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think they could very well. Yeah, absolutely, I do.
I mean, last year was an incredible game. So, Arlo, I know there's a lot of excitement with Joey and Tech, and there should be. But there's also a pretty damn good team in Houston they got their quarterback back, and they're kind of stabilized with what they do with Holgorsen, although West Virginians don't like me using that name.
I'll tell you right now, if Alton McCaskill was healthy, I'd say yes, absolutely, I would take Houston in that game, but that gave me a little bit of pause. But, yeah, I mean, it's in Lubbock. That gives me a little less pause, but do I think that Houston can go out there and win? Yes, absolutely, I do. Do I think they will? I don't know. We got to get closer to that game first before I make a pick. But, yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. I wouldn't be surprised if Houston was the favorite in Vegas going into that game, with the only reason being why they wouldn't be the fact that it's in Lubbock, honestly.
And that's also, I think, Houston's longest road trip until the end of the year. So,
There's a couple of folks, and we have some UCF fans as well, that think that they should have been in the top 25. It's fun. We start to see games played early in a couple of weeks, and then we start to see all the rest of them, and it'll all play out.
And going back to our guy earlier, somebody's like, how could he put Baylor at 20 or whatever? It's like, I don't expect, who was he covering? He was covering Pitt or Kentucky. Yeah, Kentucky, that's what I'm saying is I bet if you asked him the SEC, he could do that a lot easier than, okay, now do the Big 12 and now do the ACC. And so that's why you got to take that into account when you look at polls. And I don't think it's bias and things like that. I think it's just it's hard to know.
And what I often say to people is like, when they say, do you guys even watch this? And like, well, do you even watch? Where do you even watch? Do you watch all of them? Like, what kind of life do you have that you can watch simultaneous games all through? Do you go back and break down film of the opponents? If you're a fan of USC, are you watching USC and then you're going getting a deep dive in Oregon? No, you're not. You're not. You can pretend like you are. And then even if you are, do you really have the expertise to do that? Were you a coach? Are you some kind of analyst?
Here's
No.
what fans do, though. In the top 25 in awards and All-American teams and stuff like that, what happens a lot of times is you look at the one thing that's missing that you like or team you like, and then we have rules like we do a top 5. Well, how come so-and-so's not in the top 5? Take somebody out.
Okay, yeah. I mean, point being, overall, it's hard to have a preseason top 25 that's going to please everybody because it's hard to have a knowledge about the 25 teams and everybody else you didn't vote for. That's what I was starting with, and that's what I'll say. So, yeah, any little things you see in a top 25 poll, I mean, it's to each their own.
All right, thank you very much. Mitchell Mullins just threw something in about our chat is stupid. Well, Mitchell, thank you. You text me or tweeted or whatever it was, and I tried to respond to you. Thank you very much. By the way, again, thank you. We're over 23,000 of you. Subscribers to YouTube 365 Sports. Levi Caraway, Emery Winter, Jacob Wilson and Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie's at Baylor football practice, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak, our sponsors. We love them, thank them, and couldn't do it without them. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.